12.75.
Whitby, how much is fish and chips?
3 of us, fish chips, peas, I think one of us curry sauce, 3 cans of pop, just short of 70 quid.
£70? That's 23 quid a head, man. Even my maths does that. Very quickly, a voice note. Campbell in Scotland, go.
Up here in Banff in the northeast of Scotland, we can get a fillet and a half of haddock with a regular chips for £8 and 10 pence, and it's by far and away one of the best chippies I've ever had.
Kenneth in Surrey, fish and chips, go.
Fish and chips in Ascot, about half a mile from where you used to live, will cost you £12 and 60 pence. Great show. Keep up the good work.
That's why I moved, because you were living there. When was the last time you had fish and chips?
Couple of weeks ago.
How much? Where'd you get it from?
I think it was about 40 quid. It was in the Ivy.
Honestly, you really are. For any of you think he's a man of the people, I nearly said you're a...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory right here on Talk all the way to 10 o'clock. I stand by for 4 compelling hours of breaking news, challenging views and topical debate. Get on the show, get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. It is Tuesday, October the 28th. Here's what's coming up. A Home Office funded charity that ploughs through £60 million a year helping migrants has launched a nationwide schools programme to brainwash kids into thinking positively about the illegal foreigners who just keep on coming. Migrant Help, which runs the government's massively expensive asylum seekers helpline, is branching out into Britain's classrooms to, and I quote, challenge the mindset of pupils. This outfit has a £385 million contract to aid and assist those who break into Britain unlawfully on small boats. Is this how you want your tax money spent? 0344 499 1000. In other news, Calamity Lammy joins the Labour ranks of mad ministers, spitting and fuming in the Commons as their uselessness is exposed, according to the joke Justice Secretary, who, like hated safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips, lost his rag under questioning in the chamber. Ethiopian sex fiend Hadush Kabuti's farcically wrong release from prison was, drumroll, the Tories' fault. Of course it was, Dave. There now, lie down. Do Keir's cabinet idiots really think we're buying this don't blame us claptrap? Every single time. It's the Tories, it's the Tories, it's the Tories. You've been in office for over a year. It's not going to work anymore. Come up with a better excuse, you morons. 0344 499 1000. Meanwhile, inevitably, the unions are now warning us not to scapegoat the jail staff who mistakenly let Kibatu out. Why not? It's their bloody fault. 0344 499 1000. Also on today's show, the Net Titans on Denier Mayor Sadiq Khan as Nigel Farage brands London the last rape gang haven to be exposed. And victim Ellie Reynolds dismissed Labour's performative plans for a national public inquiry as one big cover-up. 03444991000. In other news, the sickening saga of royal scroungers Andy and Fergie continues apace. Why does the King have to find the dreadful Sarah Ferguson somewhere to live? Isn't it about time someone told this lying hanger-on you're on your own? 03444991000. Meanwhile, not content with masterminding the peerlessly hopeless one-in, one-out scheme, Two-Tier Keir has yet again announced that the cross-channel migrants will no longer be housed in four-star hotels. How many times have you heard that? Instead, apparently, our uninvited visitors will be put into disused military barracks. How many times have you heard this? 03444991000. And any case, never mind where we billet these people free of charge. How about stopping them coming to the UK in the first place? You know, with something like a deterrent. Like the Rwanda scheme, Starmer, that you ditched on day one, wasting £700 million worth of taxpayers' money. Honestly, this government, I mean, they're a sick joke, aren't they? No wonder experts are predicting that Britain's ever-escalating migrant crisis will carry on growing for at least the next 15 years. Isn't that special? 03444991000. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Tuesday night together. Now, he helped me out yesterday at the beginning of my first breakfast show, and he's with me again. Very pleased for the first hour to go through the papers with the excellent former Met Police detective, Peter Blexley. Morning, Pete.
Good morning, Kev.
First of all, by the way, I should state again, just in case you're in any doubt, I'm standing in for Mike Graham. You know what's going on. There's a Facebook investigation going on. We all have to wait. That goes for you, it goes for me, it goes for Mike. It's just one of those things. In the meantime, bear with us. The show must go on. Peter, let's go through the papers. And the first story that I noticed, I'm sure it got you going as well. They haven't done it too huge. They did it big online. It's The Sun, and it's page 9, £400 million spin on kids, spin-off on kids. Yep. Now, this is an organisation, as I said in my monologue, it's called Migrant Help. Yeah. The Home Office funds this charity largely. So, in other words, you, me, Mr. Blexley, everybody, taxpayers are funding this to the tune of about £60 million. They landed a £235 million 10-year deal in 2019 to advise asylum seekers and help them adapt to their new home that they broke into illegally. That amount has now been increased to £385 million. In itself, you know, in my view, this is a scandal. This is an absolute disgrace. They're taking our money to effectively give to people who break into our country illegally and make it all nice for them. I mean, what is going on in this madhouse of a nation? That in itself is bad enough, Pete, but this new branching out into schools is really, really worrying. So they are now touring this group, Migrant Help. They're touring the nation's classrooms, teaching kids all about the migrant crisis and challenging their mindset. In other words, they're brainwashing them into thinking that it's brilliant that all these hundreds of thousands of migrants keep breaking into our country. This is something that really worries me, what goes on in our classrooms. You've got lefties, lefty teachers, lefty social workers, lefty politicians who have made it their task to brainwash these kids into a sort of left-wing frame of mind. You know, oh, be kind to migrants and so on and so forth. I think they should leave children's minds alone, don't you?
It's yet another indicator of the progressive liberal left trying to alter the mindset of our children. Migrant Help, yes, a charity, gets 60 million a year in funding, the huge bulk of which comes from the Home Office, our taxes. And do you know what? One of the things they do with these children in the classrooms, they get them to imagine that they have 5 minutes to leave their home. What utter drivel.
Yeah.
What is the point of that? Oh, so come on then, children, adopt the mindset, say, of a man in Sudan who has to leave his home and then comes to the UK illegally on a dinghy, and then imagine that he goes by the name of Deng Magic, and imagine that on Friday last, you don't have to imagine it because it's fact, he was convicted of the murder of 27-year-old Rhiannon White, who he stabbed over 20 times, 11 times in the head. And Rhiannon worked in a hotel where they were trying to help people like him. Rest her soul. That's a scandal that got so little airtime and column inches because, of course, of that idiot going on the run.
And after he stabbed that poor girl, all she was a local girl working in the asylum seeker hotel. Looked like a very nice girl. She's walking home. That guy stabbed her 23 times with a screwdriver and then was seen dancing and laughing with the excitement of it all. These are the people that Migrant Help want to persuade kids have every right to come to this country. And why are they being taught about, imagine you have to leave your home in 5 minutes. It's to get them to sympathise with these poor victims of war and torture who have to leave their homes in places like Sudan in a serious hurry. That's not nice in the genuine cases. Most of our asylum seekers, their cases are not genuine. Most of them are lying. We know that. That's a fact. But by the time they get to this country, they're escaping war and torture. No, they're coming from France. There isn't any war and torture in France, right?
Absolutely right. And these kids are being taught this drivel. I'll go into schools and teach them about Deng Magic. I'll go into schools and teach them about Hadush Kibatu's sexual predatory paedophile offending and then being a wanted person. I'll go into schools and warn the kids and teach them about that, because that is the increasing danger that our children are facing. Why are the protests in Epping outside the Bell Hotel completely vindicated by Kibatu's sexual offending against children and others? This is the danger. These hotels spread the length and breadth of the country, where some of these predatory, dangerous people who cannot control their urges, who cannot control their actions, are now on the streets mingling and bit by bit, dinghy by dinghy, making the UK a less safe place to live.
Absolutely. Remember Kabutu, one of his victims, the first victim, was a 14-year-old schoolgirl. So Migrant Help are going to go into her classroom and say, oh, you've got to feel sorry for these poor migrants who've had to leave their homes in 5 minutes. So she will be able to turn around and say, what, including the one that sexually assaulted me? See what I mean? This is absolutely crazy, absolutely crazy. Our money. There's another scheme, right? It's called the money we pile into pouring generosity onto these people is just extraordinary. It's obscene, to be honest with you. Now, there's another scheme called the Asylum Support Scheme. In 5 years, and now this is the support scheme. This it's not. It's run by charities. I think it does get some government input as well. So again, we're helping to fund it. And this is the scheme that surprised them with driving lessons and trampoline lessons and days out to the zoo and the football and the cricket and all of this. I mean, why do we do this for them? But we do. Anyway, in 5 years, guess how much the asylum seeker support scheme ploughed through? £6.6 billion. Yeah. We are spending fortunes on people who break into our country illegally, and it's got to stop. I mean, we're a civilised country. We need to treat these people who do try to break into our country, with human decency, but no more than that. First of all, I think never mind a 4-star hotel, never mind the barracks they're now once again talking about putting migrants into. They say that every week. We're not going to put them in hotels anymore, we're going to put them in barracks. Yeah. Who cares, frankly, in the end? How about you set about trying to stop them in the first place? But instead of all this, instead of nice places to live for free, instead of £50 a week benefits, instead of free food, instead of free hotels, instead of free lawyers, instead of free dentists, instead of free doctors, trampoline lessons, driving tests, instead of all that, how about we put them in jail because they broke our laws? We detain them and then we deport them. Now, if that message gets out, Pete, then they'll stop coming.
There is a real deceit and deception within what the Home Office are saying when they say they will place them in barracks, even if they do. Because when you and I think of barracks, I think we think of places that are guarded by troops, where troops would be kept. No. And you can't leave those freely. You need permissions and all that kind of stuff. Even so, if they house 900, they reckon they can put in there, well, that's less than a week's head count of people coming in by dinghies, right? So it's just a drop in the channel, right? Even if they put 900 in there and they're saying they're going to go to Cameron Barracks in Inverness, beautiful part of the world, and Crowborough Army Training Camp in East Sussex, my advice to people living anywhere near those places, because these migrants will be free to come and go as they like, is exercise considerable caution. Because in all likelihood, you do not know who those people are. We may not know where they've come from. We may not know what their intentions are. And speaking exactly of that, your top story about this migrant help charity is on page 9 of The Sun today. And I would urge anybody, if you're going to digest some media today, please either pop down the newsagents or go online and read this article on page 8
the rest
page
of the
9
spread, 8
of
and 9.
The Sun. The strap at the top. The Sun investigates surge of migrant fugitives, not just illegal immigrants, but fugitives. And it exposes brilliantly in this article, well done Nick Parker, the foreign editor, of the criminals that have come in here who have been wanted elsewhere for crimes such as, you've got it, murder. Murderers coming into this country on dinghies, being fed and clothed and housed at our expense and brought into this country when they shouldn't be.
It's an absolute disgrace. This place, safe haven for murderers, rapists, the worst kind of criminals from all over the world. They're coming here, they get into northern France, getting onto these dinghies, these small boats, coming across. We don't know anything about them. And all of a sudden, Pete, they're not treated as criminals, which they are. They're serious. They're like welcomed guests, aren't they? It's an absolute disgrace. And they, this whole Labour's line about, we're going to stop using hotels. Well, I suppose that's slightly good. I don't want to waste too much money putting them in 4-star hotels with golf courses and spas, but in the end, you can't say, we'll stop using hotels and we'll get them into disused prisons, disused barracks. In the end, I don't really care where you put them. How about we don't let them come in the first place? It's just absurd. It is
absolutely absurd. Prevention is better than cure, but it seems that's an expression that this lamentable government are not familiar with. But when they talk about not using hotels, where are they going to go? They're coming into our communities, our communities, HMOs that
houses
might be in your
street. Houses of multiple occupation,
Yes.
Coming soon to a next-door neighbour near you. This is what's going to happen. You're going to have, the more they say, we won't be using hotels anymore. Well, I mean, as Pete was indicating, a couple of barracks, a few disused prisons here and there, holiday camps, doesn't amount to much. In the end, they're going to end up living in everybody's streets in these houses of multiple occupation. Before we move on, though, of course, the Prime Minister once again is trying to convince us that he's even remotely on top of this escalating madhouse crisis. And here he is. Take it away, two-tier Keir.
We inherited a huge mess in relation to pretty well all departments in government, and that includes the Home Office. If you take the issue of asylum hotels, for example, we had years under the previous government where they didn't process claims. So tens of thousands of people didn't have their claims processed. They were then housed in hotels. That was the policy of the last government. There were 400 at the height of it. It's now about 200. I'm determined that we will close those hotels. We're processing the claims much more quickly, and where people have got no right to be in our country, we're removing them at a higher rate than the best part of a decade. So we're taking the action, but I can't tell you how frustrated and angry I am that we've been left with a mess as big as this by the last government.
Just shut up. I'm so sick of this. Everything that ever happens, it's the Tories. The mess they left us. Lammy, yesterday, we'll do this after the break. Lammy, Calamity Lammy, the joke Justice Secretary, actually saying that the reason that sex offender, Hadish Kabuti, the reason that he was mistakenly let out of jail, or the people, that's down to the Tories. It was the Tories' fault. No, Lammy, it was your fault. It was Labour's fault. Honestly, these people are idiots. Does that idiot Starmer? By the way, what's he doing in Turkey? That's yesterday. Get off an aeroplane, come back to the country and try to govern it. And stop blaming the Tories for everything. I mean, do they really think we're buying this anymore? You know, you're going to get Rachel Reeves over the next few weeks leading up to a November budget from hell. Oh, the reason I'm having to do this, the reason I'm having to break all my promises is not because I've been utterly useless in my first year as the world's worst Chancellor of the Exchequer. It's because of the Tories. You know, we're not buying this. We're not stupid. We're not, honestly, it's pathetic, isn't it?
That clip from Starmer, where he talks about processing the asylum claims, my note on that would be, read the small print, because that is code for them going, in you come, next, in you come, next, in you come, next, and even when they do find the grounds to deny somebody asylum, what's going to happen? All those human rights lawyer chums of Starmer. Let's remember, Starmer is a former human rights lawyer.
Still is, Pete. That's what he is.
Ever lose sight of that. All of his chums in that industry, including Herma, the Attorney General, will exploit the loopholes of the law, will take these to tribunals, will take these to appeal with every intention they've possibly got of letting all these people into the country when they should not be here.
Exactly right, and this is the mess you get. What is he doing in Turkey? I'm just looking at, why is he in Turkey? Get off, he's like a kid. Ooh, I'm going on an aeroplane, we're going on another journey. It's going to be in Brazil soon on that absolute festival of total hypocrisy, the pathetic, not much COP30 climate change conference. Another 9,000-mile first-class journey. That should ruin the planet. I mean, it's unbelievable. We better go to break. When we come back, I think we'll have a look at old Calamity Lammy losing his rag in the House of Commons. It's very funny. That next.
as a political class as well, and we need to be more honest about that, because the real problem, I think, is that under both the current government, the Conservative government, and I go back to the times of the previous Blair government, when we still had problems with our prisons and people were being put into police station cells. So the buck passing doesn't really solve the problem as far as the victims of crime are concerned, or public confidence in the system.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, still with former Met Police Detective, our favourite guest, Peter Blexley. We'll go through the papers. This is the front page of The Guardian today. Ministers warned not to scapegoat prison staff over sex offender case, with a sickening inevitability. Of course, the unions have come in and said, well, you know, letting this sex offender, this famous sex fiend, out of Chelmsford jail, you can't blame the prison staff who did it. Well, who are we supposed to blame them? Yes, I want to blame Lammy. Yes, I want to blame the prison minister, James Timpson. They should take the blame. Yes, I want to blame the governor, a guy called Mark Howard. They should all get seriously punished, if not lose their jobs. But don't blame the officers. Don't blame the staff who let them out. Well, who are we supposed to blame then? This is at the heart of one of the problems with this great nation. There's never any blame game. No one is ever punished for making mistakes. If you make a serious mistake, you should get sacked. So far, and I do think this is a bit of a scandal, the only person carrying the can for this is one prison officer who's been suspended. We need more people to be on the rack about this, obviously, going right up to the top. You know, what about the prison governor, Mark Howard? What are you doing? What kind of a shambles are you presiding over? You can't blame him. Yeah, I can. Of course I can. He's the boss. The buck has to stop somewhere. We need to go back to that. The buck stops at the top. Anyway, let's talk about this ongoing shambles surrounding the release of Kobatu, Hadush Kobatu, because yesterday Lammy, David Calamity Lammy, as we now call him, was at the dispatch box in the House of Commons answering questions on it. And Robert Jenrick, his oppo, on the Tories, the Shadow Justice Secretary, gave him a hard time. And if you remember last week, remember Jess Phillips, the laughably so-called safeguarding minister, who most victims of the grooming gang don't think she safeguards them at all. She lost a rag as well when questioned. We aren't right in the remit of it's staying exactly. Completely lost her temper. Have a look at Lammy yesterday.
I can tell the House that he will now be transported for deportation back to Ethiopia as quickly as possible. However, this does not change the fact that Mr. Kobatu's victims are rightly outraged about what has happened. And I'm livid on their behalf. And on behalf of the public, this was a mistake that should not have happened. The victims expect better. The public expects better, and this government expects better from a critical public service, which plays a vital role in our first duty to keep the British people safe and free from harm.
Anyway, I mean, what is he talking about anyway? By the way, remember this. There's two things I want to say about this. As soon as Kobatu gets caught, they said, right, we're going to deport him. right away. They actually said they were going to deport him today. Suddenly, it being this government, they're not quite sure exactly when he's going to get deported. But how come is it you get a sort of celebrity prisoner, if you like, migrant prisoner, like Kibatu, that the government's able to say, right, he's getting deported. Why don't you deport the rest of the migrant prisoners as well? Why don't you deport all of them? If you can do it that easily with this guy, with this sex offender, why don't you do it with the rest? What is going on there? Anyway, Robert Jenrick then tackled Mr. Lammy on this comedy of errors surrounding Chelmsford Jail.
There are now record numbers of foreign nationals clogging up our prisons, more than under the last government. How many of those 262 prisoners accidentally released are migrants like Kibatu who were awaiting deportation? Madam Deputy Speaker, can the Justice Secretary give the House his cast iron assurance that this man will be deported from our country by the end of the week, as he promised on the news on Sunday? And if he fails, will he take responsibility and resign?
At which point Lammy completely lost his temper and started shouting and screaming. But as I say, Pete, you know, suddenly they can release this guy, or they can deport this guy. Oh, he's going to be deported immediately. As they say, they were saying he was going to be deported today. Now it's as soon as possible. So stand by for Mr. Kibatu to remain in this nation for probably about 10 years or something like that. But how come? It's on the basis they do get rid of him, say within a week. What about the rest of them? Why don't they get rid of all the migrant prisoners?
Or why don't we stop these boats coming in the first place? Why don't we leave the European Convention on Human Rights, take no notice of the European Court of Human Rights, mobilise our Navy, for example, with a special boat service who are the best in the world at what they do and would ensure that people don't drown? And why don't we breach with convention? The French government is absolutely on its knees. It's about as pathetic as ours. Why don't we turn those boats around and just rock up on the French shore and deliver all of those people back to France and say, go on then, France, have your diplomatic incident. Yeah. See what you feel about it. Do we care?
Exactly right, exactly right. Anyway, here is Lammy. Guess who he blames for the prison crisis and Kibatu getting released? That's right, it's the Tories. Take it away, Dave.
Madam Deputy Speaker, releases in error are a symptom of a system that we inherited from the party opposite.
Truth it.
Jails were full almost to breaking point, and the threat of total collapse in law and order. The fact is that we were left with prisons reeling from historic funding reductions.
Shut up! Stop it! It's like a sickness with them, isn't it? It's a sickness. Everything is the Tories' fault. Oh, like a car crash yesterday. I blame the past Tory government. You know, I mean, it's a joke.
That argument has worn gossamer thin to the point of being an irrelevancy now.
It is, yeah.
It's their only line. Their only line. Yeah. We don't hear lines about improvement. We don't hear lines about improved systems. We don't hear lines about a very different way, a very different approach, radical differences, stopping the boats. We don't hear practical, different options and avenues that are being explored and utilised. We don't hear any of that. We have the one line and the one line only. And in the first clip of Lammy, he kept saying about how many organisations and what have you expects better. He kept trailing it, expects better. Well, do you know what, David Lammy, Keir Starmer and the rest of your appalling cabinet? Britain expects and actually deserves better than what we're getting.
Damn straight. And, you know, you look at David Lammy and you think, well, if he is an example of the calibre of people in the cabinet, we are in more trouble than we thought. And of course he is. You know, that cabinet, that useless cabinet, Keir's cabinet crew, are just full to call them mediocrities is too much of a compliment. They're just useless people. David Lammy, I mean, what's he even for? What's he even for? What a joke. What a joke. Let's go to break now. When we come back, maybe we'll have a little chat about the Royals. They seem to be in the news yet again. So that next, stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan. I'm still with Peter Blexley, former Met Police detective, everyone's favourite guest, certainly my favourite guest. We're going through the papers, a couple of stories in the Daily Telegraph today, Pete. I promise you after this we will leave the migrant crisis alone, but these people, they come in, so I mean, not all of them, let's be fair, but some of them are so entitled. These two people staying at the Roundhouse Hotel in Bournemouth. Bournemouth has got three, I would say, reasonable to describe them as notorious asylum seeker hotels. There's this guy, Ibrahim Zouari, and Hussein Nouira. They didn't like the food that was being served at their asylum seeker hotel. So they demanded that staff serve them lunch to meet them their dietary requirements. They were told it would not be possible as the staff were serving breakfast at the time. It was 6:20 a.m. So what they did, this pair of migrants, this pair of asylum seekers, as they went off and they came back with knives. And then they tried to attack the staff. Demanding that they got the food that they required, the free food that we pay for, that we supply them. Zouari's got sentenced to 15 months in prison at Bournemouth Crown Court, and his mate Hussein Nouira got a 12-month sentence.
Not enough.
But I mean, the entitlement of these people. They come here, we put them in free hotels, we give them free food, they demand lunch at 6:20 in the morning with their special dietary requirements, and when the staff say, well, really sorry, we're kind of serving breakfast, they go off, they get knives, and they chase the staff around, threatening to stab them to death.
Yep.
I mean, that is entitlement on an epic, sinister level, isn't it?
Set against the backdrop of Deng Majek actually killing a hotel worker. Let's not forget Rhiannon White's name. OK, so these pair of vermin, Zouari, came to the UK illegally from Libya. Nouira came from Tunisia after apparently being threatened because he got a woman pregnant. What welcome additions. I've scoured the article in the Telegraph and the Express to see if they are doctors, engineers, learned philosophers, or something like, you know, those professions that we were sometimes hoodwinked into thinking some of these people might be. And guess what? They're not. They also picked up a chair, threatening staff, knives, chairs, just because they couldn't get lunch at 6:20 in the morning. Funnily enough, that's breakfast time for just about everybody else that lives here. And that's when they return to the hotel. I wonder what they've been doing until 6:20 a.m.
Been out on the
in the morning.
Night, haven't they?
I wonder. And this is yet another
drugs, no doubt.
Another example of the nonsense. These people are vermin. They are garbage. They are dirt. They should not be in this country.
I hate the way you sit on the fence, I really do. But seriously, you're absolutely right. And you know what will happen with those two? They'll come out of jail and they'll go back to the migrant hotel. They won't be deported. This is the joke. And just one more little story to annoy you again from the Telegraph. This is Southwark Council. That encompasses Talk Towers right here. Yeah, right. It's sort of a major London borough.
Yeah.
It is a borough of sanctuary. It likes to see itself as a borough of sanctuary. It's arranged a football match between two asylum seeker hotels, migrants playing each other at football. This is all part of their scheme to make our foreign visitors feel welcome, to promote what they call their culture of welcome for asylum seekers. This is ridiculous. So the Best Western Hotel in Peckham... You can make this stuff up.
Really?
The migrants staying at the Best Western Hotel in Peckham played against the migrants from Driscoll House on the Old Kent Road. It was followed by a barbecue and Eritrean coffee served free of charge. We're not sure what the result of that match was. But I'm blowing the whistle on it, giving it the red card. I don't think we should be doing this. You know, I don't want to, you know, we're a civilised country. I don't want to treat these people inhumanely. But this culture of welcome nonsense is stupid. It's exactly why they keep coming.
Well, actually, I can break an exclusive this morning on Talk that the BBC are in discussions to launch a new primetime Saturday night programme called Migrant Match of the Day. And they will be covering games such as this. Right? Gary Lineker is going to come back and present it. Yeah. And,
Asylum Albion, yeah.
Oh, come on, audience.
We could have an asylum seekers league.
Give us your migrant team names.
Brilliant idea. Honestly, we've got to stop this. As I said, I'm not talking about treating them inhumanely. We're civilised people. But this culture of welcome nonsense, 6.6 billion on, you know, driving lessons, trampoline lessons, going to the zoo, going to football matches, cricket, days out, and you know, football matches and culture of welcome. It's got to stop. It's why they keep coming. This country is full, literally full to capacity. Our infrastructure is creaking at the seams. We cannot carry on like this, and the culture of welcome nonsense and football matches and trampoline lessons got to stop. It's got to stop. I'll tell you what else has got to stop is Sarah Ferguson scrounging. Fergie. Well, we got the Sun here somewhere, haven't we? Yes. Costmore Cottage. This is all based around the fact that Prince Andrew who, with his ex-wife Fergie, currently shares the 30-room mansion Royal Lodge, in the sort of shadow of Windsor Castle in Windsor Great Park. It looks as if he may just about have finally agreed to leave and move into Frogmore Cottage, which was spruced up by Harry and Meghan to the tune of £2.4 million when they moved in 2019. In order to agree to move, this awful oaf, this lying oaf who pretends that he didn't sexually abuse Virginia Giuffre on 3 continents, if you believe him, I've got some swampland to sell you in Florida. He can deny it as much as he likes. He's a liar. He's a liar. Anyway, here he is. He now wants us, in effect, to spend more money doing up Frogmore Cottage some more, so that he can move into it. And then, meanwhile, his bloody wife, Sarah, or his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, the world's worst venal scrounger, who's basically lived off paedophile Jeffrey Epstein for years. He gave her millions of pounds. She is demanding, she doesn't want to live with Andy anymore, don't blame her for that. She's demanding Adelaide Cottage, which William and Kate and their kids currently live in. They're about to move to a bigger place. So she's demanding that. Now, I can just about, through gritted teeth, accept that the King's brother, we can't exactly make him homeless, but her? His former wife? I mean, it's about time, isn't it, that we told this awful redhead, listen, darling, you're on your own. Get out there, get a job or something like that. You know, this is ridiculous. Why will she get this amazing mansion in the middle of Windsor Great Park? I don't think people want that. The King, I've got to say, keeps coming up with terrible solutions to all of this. We need an Act of Parliament to strip this guy Andrew of his titles. It's not good enough just for the King to say, it's all right, he won't use them anymore. No, no, no. We officially strip him of his titles, and we don't give Sarah Ferguson somewhere to live but she. Because, of course, the reason that apparently the King is minded so to do is because he's a bit worried that if he doesn't look after Sarah, she will write a tell-all book. Well, suck it up, Your Majesty. You know, so what? Nobody cares. Don't give her anywhere to live. Make her go and earn a living, yeah?
Andrew's got a pension from his service in the as a helicopter pilot in the armed services, apparently of about 20 grand a year, right? He's a couple of months younger than me, and I qualify for my old age pension in December, so he won't be far behind. So that's another 12 grand a year, give or take a few quid. So Andy soon will have an income of 32 grand a year, all right? And he hasn't got to get out of bed for that 32 grand a year. So give the pair of them a 3-bed semi and the modern day equivalent of a full Cortina and send them off. He's got 32 grand a year. He'll have to cut his cloth accordingly and he can live on that. He can do some volunteering, or if he can get himself a little job to earn some more money and boost his pensions, so be it. Yeah. That's what people in Britain have to do. Yeah. Why should him, a discredited, entitled oaf, have to have millions and live in a palace?
Yeah, and frankly, if His Majesty, if the royal family are worried about a sort of tell-all, revealing, dangerous book written by Fergie, you know, so what? So what? We don't care. We've had enough of this. We've had enough of this. You know, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Also, the BBC is revealing that while he's still at Royal Lodge at the moment, that while he has been in that place since, I think, it's way back when, isn't it? He's been in there 22 years, I think. He hosted, among his many guests, his celebrity guests, Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted paedophile, Ghislaine Maxwell, who's doing 20 years for supplying Jeffrey Epstein and his mates with young underage girls, and Harvey Weinstein, the disgraced sex fiend film producer. So, lovely guests Andrew is bringing into the royal domain. Hey, honestly, it's got to stop. Later on, by the way, I'll be joined by Kinsey Schofield, Huddersfield. We'll play you the video of King Charles on a visit yesterday where he was heckled by the crowd shouting, "Did you know about Jeffrey Epstein? You know, you must have known about Andrew." In other words, this is what is happening to the royal family. The whole Andrew saga is like a cancer fighting, you know, searing its way through the royal family. It is causing the royal family, it's an existential crisis, it really is. I think the majority of people in this country are now sort of behind getting rid of the royal family. Now, I wouldn't be in favour of that because I think a lot of people love the royal family. But I tell you what, King Charles has got to get real about this. If he doesn't do something about the Andy and Fergie situation, the antipathy towards the royals is going to get worse and worse and worse. His solutions so far are not enough. You know, what I think we'd like to see is the King announcing, well, I've kicked Andy and Fergie out of Royal Lodge. Where are they going, Your Majesty? Oh, I don't know. That would be nice. Let's go to break. Some more stories when we come back.
Even I am not going to blame David Lammy.
Remember, this is a man who went on Celebrity Mastermind and asked, name a blue cheese. He said Red Leicester. Which French Marie won the Nobel Prize? Antoinette. And best of all, which Henry came after Henry VII? Before Henry VII. Which Henry came before Henry VII? He says Henry VIII.
Yeah, I mean,
this is not a man that is capable of running a service of the complexity and importance of the prison estates.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Quick text. This is from Michael. He lives next door to the Barbican Thistle Hotel in London, which is the migrant asylum seeker hotel with the highest crime rate among its inmates in all of Britain. So long-suffering Michael says, Kev and Peter, why can't they deport all the illegals from our jails? He says, Michael, living next door to the Barbican intake. Well, that's exactly our question. Suddenly, Hadush Kabatu, oh yeah, we're going to deport him. What about the rest of them? Why is it so easy to deport him, but you can't deport the rest? You know, what have we got? 80,000 prisoners in this country. About 12,000 of them are foreigners, many of them illegal migrants. You know, you go, oh, the jails are so crowded, we're having to let out murderers and rapists and gun gang drug dealers and all this kind of stuff. Well, why don't you, instead of letting out all these very dangerous criminals, why don't you kick out the migrants and send them back to their country like you're doing to Hadush Kabatu? It's a good point. Quick voice note. This is Matt on our friend Kabatu.
Morning, Kev. Matt in Hove here. So, this illegal Ethiopian migrant that was on the loose over the weekend is now back in custody. And earlier today, it said he's going to be deported today. And that's now changed to any time soon. Well, what's the betting? Some fluffy little woke left-wing human rights lawyer has got knee-deep in his case, and he's going to say to the judge, oh, he's going to get persecuted back in Ethiopia because he was on the run for the weekend and everyone was looking for him. What is the betting? A human rights lawyer to let him stay here. Absolutely sodding sick of this country.
Matt, you're exactly on the money. Don't expect Kabatu to be deported anytime soon. I bet you're right. I bet you there are human rights lawyers crawling all over him right now, and the government won't be able to get rid of him. But if they do, I want to see them get rid of more. If it's that easy to deport migrants, get rid of this guy and get rid of the rest. Right, very quickly, Pete, before we go to the COVID inquiry, has cost £192 million. It's coming in at the cost of £160,000 a day, and it won't examine whether or not we should have had lockdowns. What's the point?
And £110 million of that money has gone to, guess what? The lawyers. No matter what the day, no matter what the case, the lawyers always get richer.
Ain't that the case? Exactly right. That is a waste of time and money, that inquiry. It really, really is. Pete, what a way to start the day. Thank you very much. Peter Blexley, former Met Police detective, going through the papers with me. When I come back after the news, James Hill from The Spectator will join me to go through some more big stories. So stick around, folks.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay!
8722, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why?
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed.
You carry on taking the medication, George. Yes, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough.
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. He goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months. We have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that?
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was absolutely brilliant.
Which MP would you send to space?
Oh, no, I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists. There is just so many to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy.
Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back?
Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Oh, that is an outrageous question, so I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Come on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what, there's no.
I think David Lammy would be the person I'd want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there?
Hey, it worked.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In a little while, we're going to have a look at yet another grooming gang, thankfully caught and jailed. A Romanian grooming gang jailed for raping 10 women in Dundee. We'll take a look at that disturbing case. Unfortunately, it's a story that is being repeated all over the country. It's good when they get caught, but think about all those who don't get caught, and remember, the grooming gang, call it the rape gang. It's not a grooming gang, this is a rape gang. That's what they do. The rape gang scandal continues apace. It is still happening all over the country, especially in London, in case you're watching Mr. Sadiq Khan. Sadiq Khan is like this weird rape gang denier, as if it isn't happening. It is. Everybody knows it's happening in London, and him pretending that it doesn't. It's a scandal. That is a repeat of what happened up in the north, in Rotherham, Rochdale, where the local authorities, the local politicians, coppers, teachers, social workers, all said, no, nothing to see here. It was going on. They turned a blind eye, they turned their backs. Sadiq Khan stands accused of doing exactly the same again. And let me tell you, he is treading on thin ice. He's in big trouble here. He can't carry on like this. Something is happening in the capital, and he can't carry on pretending it isn't. So we'll look at that in about 20 minutes. But first, let's go through some of the big stories of the day with a man who knows all about big stories. He is the Spectator's deputy political editor, James Hill. Morning, James.
Morning, Kevin.
Well, look, first of all, there's a big story in The Sun that I think bears examination. There's a charity called Migrant Help. Incredibly, they get they're in the midst of a £385 million 10-year contract to help migrants. They run an advice line for the Home Office. So essentially the important thing about this charity is taxpayers essentially fund it. Now, they've branched out now. They're going on a sort of nationwide tour of schools into the classrooms to, and I quote, challenge the mindset of pupils who will, among other things, be shown kind of a theatrical recreation of what it's like to suddenly have to leave your fly-blown home in Syria in 5 minutes because the forces of evil are descending upon you, and if you don't run you will be consumed by war and torture. So you can see what we're getting at here. This is brainwashing kids. The Migrant Help defended its spending decisions, arguing this is the school workshop. The workshops are educational, not political. The Home Office said this contract was agreed under the previous government, always the previous government, isn't it? All contracts are subject to review to ensure they continue to deliver value. Well, at the moment we're spending £385 million on a charity that's going round classrooms trying to brainwash the kids into thinking positively about asylum seekers. I don't think taxpayers will be that keen on that method of getting through their money, would you?
No, and I think that it smacks of what was previously called sock puppetry, which is when one arm of government effectively lobbies the other arm for more money. And of course, who picks up the tab? It's the taxpayer. And of course, the costs of putting people who are coming here in hotels, etc., was revealed yesterday to have cost 15 billion. Now it turns out this contract suggests they're spending up to 300 million on educating people in our country on this. And it's just something, I think, which will have the Home Office having its head in its hands, because it goes completely against the government's messaging on this. And of course, it just comes as a great waste and largesse at a time when the public services are crumbling.
Indeed. I mean, and still with the asylum seeker problem, the crisis, if you like. I mean, it's on the front page of the Times today, but it's yet another announcement by this government. We're going to stop putting migrants into hotels, often 4-star hotels, and we're going to now start billeting them in disused military barracks, disused holiday camps and the like. They've named one in Scotland, one in Sussex. But is it just me, or is that announcement on a repeat loop? Because they seem to say it every single damn week. They say it all the time. I mean, there are two things to say about it. First of all, 2 military bases, or former military bases, won't be anything like big enough to handle the number of migrants coming across. They'll still have to use hotels. And the second thing I'd like to say, let me know what you think, James, is you know, this government obsesses on where we're putting these migrants. It seems to think that by announcing to us we're going to stop using these expensive hotels and we're going to put them into military barracks. Well, OK, I'm not entirely against that. It saves some money. But they seem to miss the point. They think that when we receive this information, they are so worried about the migrant crisis, the asylum seeker crisis, but it's OK now because they won't be putting them in hotels. They'll put them into military barracks. That isn't at the heart of the matter, is it? What we'd like to see is some kind of credible plan to stop them keep coming.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think that's the main thing that people were saying in Labour after the comprehensive spending review, where they said, oh, well, Rachel Reeves wants to get rid of these hotels. No, the point is they don't want the people here in the first place, as you say, Kevin. So it's the key point where you actually store these people. And the second thing as well, Kevin, is that we've also seen these stories come and go for many years. I'm very sceptical of this because, like you, I've been covering this issue for 4 or 5 years now. And of course, they were in the army barracks, and they were moved to the hotels, they were put on the boats, and that's the whole merry-go-round. The whole game of whack-a-mole repeats itself endlessly. And there are always problems. We'll always get involved, and I will be very sceptical. I will wait to see if it actually happens. I don't think it will, to be frank.
Also, James, we know, while they keep saying we're going to reduce the use of hotels and by 2029 we won't be using any at all, we know they're commandeering new ones to use as we speak. And I think that the sort of postcard of this kind of falsity, really, this kind of false narrative that the government are trying to put up, no more hotels, instead barracks and disused holiday camps, etc., etc. The postcard for this deception was, of course, the Bell Hotel in Epping, where the local people, sick and tired of these migrants, these asylum seekers in their midst, including, of course, the now very famous Hadush Kabatu, the Ethiopian sex offender who sexually assaulted 2 local women, one of them just a 14-year-old girl. They took the government to court to close this down. And they won. They won the case in the High Court. And what did this government do? This government that doesn't want to use asylum seeker hotels anymore? It appealed so that it could carry on using the Bell Hotel to put asylum seekers in. So there you have it. Oh, we don't want to use asylum seeker hotels. Oh my God, these people have managed to close one down. Let's appeal. Let's get that damn thing open again. Do you see what I mean? I think they're deceiving us.
Well, yeah, and if you read the arguments put forward by the Home Office in that case, they kind of make a mockery of elements of what they've been claiming publicly as well. I mean, it was all the sense that we need to put them in here because otherwise the whole chain of process will unravel. And of course, the Court of Appeal couldn't go fast enough to try and reverse the lower court's decision on this matter. I think that when it comes to putting these people, there are just simply not enough barracks. I think that we're talking the tens of thousands of people who are over here. So whether they actually hit their target in 2028, or if it means they have to rush them into some purpose-built accommodation, presumably at some private contractor at God knows what expense, I just can't see them making any attempt, given, as you say, Kevin, the pressures are so overwhelming, and the fact they've won this court verdict to keep going into hotels in the first place.
Well, of course, Keir Starmer yesterday, he was in Turkey. I mean, does this guy ever get off aeroplanes? I don't know. God knows what he was doing in Turkey, but there he was giving this interview about the asylum seeker crisis. Of course, as always, blaming the Tories. It's the previous government's fault. This syndrome of Labour blaming everything on the previous Tory administration is getting embarrassing, to be honest with you. It's like they're like sort of joke parrots, just pull their string and they'll blame the Tories. Yesterday we got a very extreme, egregious example of this syndrome when the joke Justice Secretary David Lammy in Parliament talking about Hadush Kabatu, our friend, the Ethiopian sex offender who was mistakenly let out of Chelmsford Jail last Friday in an absolute comical fiasco. This was, of course, James, you won't be surprised to hear, him getting out, him being accidentally released, it was the Tories' fault. Have a look at old Lammy.
Violence went up in our prisons. Self-harm went up in our prisons. Drug abuse went up in our prisons. And prison officer numbers were cut under his watch. And he comes here and has the brass neck to give the impression that this started just 14 months ago. Let me just pause there. William Fernandez was released in error in March 2021. He was a sexual predator. He raped a 16-year-old and sexually assaulted another young woman after he was let out by prison in 2021. Was there an independent investigation? No, not from their side.
Well, it's getting very heated there, isn't he? He's not quite mentioning that while the Tories have been, while the Labour government have been in power over the past year, 262 prisoners were mistakenly released. 262. We don't know how many were asylum seekers, but I bet you there were quite a few. So there were quite a few other Hadush Kabatus in the frame here. But, I can't quite believe that David Lammy, when confronted by his oppo, his opposite number, the shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick, about how did this happen? How did this guy, how come he was let out? How come 5 times he tried to get back into the jail and the prison officers wouldn't let him? And in the end, angrily directed him to the station and said, well, for God's sake, will you get the hell out of here? All of this comedy of errors. I can't quite believe that Lammy expects us to accept, to believe him when he stands up and says, well, I'll tell you why this happened. I'll tell you who was to blame. It was the Tories. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think there's 2 different issues here. One of which was sort of Labour pretended that all they had to do was get into power, get rid of those evil, wicked Tories and wave a magic wand, and suddenly the levers of the state would respond and everything would go back to the way it should be. And of course, that was a completely false impression, which they were happy to paint through many, many years in opposition. The second point to note, of course, is that this rhetoric about, oh, we can't fix it, it's as bad as the Tories, that simply plays into Nigel Farage's hands. I think the public will think, they'll look at that and they'll think, hang on a sec, if you're saying you're impotent and bad as each other, why don't we say, plague on both your houses, get rid of you, and vote for someone else for reform? Because I think that's the issue here, is that although I think Mlami actually is correct to point out that the prison service did get worse under the Conservatives, what are they doing to fix it? And actually taking some responsibilities, I think one way to actually bolster your standing with the public, because otherwise they'll just say, if you can't fix this, we voted for change. That was the one word you stood on last year. We're going to vote it for proper change next time and get rid of the whole Labour Party.
Exactly right. And while we're still on this topic, Jenrick was casting doubt on Labour's pledge to get Kibatu out of the country, get him deported. Now, that has been watered down from, I believe it was over the weekend, they said it'll be today, Tuesday. Well, that has now was then watered down to within a week, and it's now as soon as possible. So there are two questions here. I wonder if Labour is able to get rid of this guy at all. He's probably right now being assailed by human rights lawyers left, right and centre who will fight his case to stay. So I wonder how quickly they can actually get rid of this guy. But secondly, I think the bigger point, James, is, and we're getting lots and lots of calls and texts here at Talk about this from our audience saying, well, hang on a second, if this Labour government is able to take this one guy, Hadush Kibatu, and at a stroke say, right, he's on the next plane back to Ethiopia, he is getting deported. Everyone's saying, well, what about the other 10,000 foreign prisoners in our jails? Why can't we deport them?
Well, that's going to be the argument many people make, certainly. I think that to note two things, one of which is it may be due to his individual circumstances in terms of the agreements we have with Ethiopia as opposed to other countries. The second point, of course, is that the state only acts sometimes when it's had a kick up the backside. And I think that given the public outrage, of course, now maybe the wheels of justice will turn quicker. But I think you're right, Kevin, which is that, people will ask why more of this can't be done. I think that it's obviously very complex issues we're dealing with, but the impetus ought to be there. And I do think sometimes there is a sense, as we saw with the report that came out last week about the Home Office, too many in government simply throw up their hands and say, oh, it's the way of the world, we can't solve things. And I mean, with that defeatism, that cynicism, I think can be corrosive to trying to get some of these stuff done, particularly given foreign rapists, which Labour ought to realise is one of the most sort of electorally explosive issues here, and that this guy will not be the last, certainly, and there'll be many more cases, sadly, on current trends over the next 4 years will be released accidentally. Yeah,
I think foreign rapists are not popular, and perhaps the government should try and get rid of as many of them as possible. Let's move on. Lastly, James, I want to talk about Nigel Farage held yesterday what I thought was a rather successful press conference, flanked by a girl who's become a bit of a friend of mine. She's been a guest on my show quite often, Ellie Reynolds from Barrow and Furness, a very eloquent, charming grooming gang victim up in Barrow and Furness. So they focused on the rape gang inquiry that never was, isn't happening, and the way it's going never will be. And not only did they talk about how the government is letting down the nation, letting down the victims by not getting to grips with actually starting this inquiry, but they also talked about how Sadiq Khan in London in particular seems to be denying that we have a problem. Nigel Farage said London, may well be the last ungreat haven of grooming gangs going undetected. Let's have a little look at what he had to say.
Initially, I looked upon it all with a degree of disbelief. Surely nothing as large as this, nothing as appalling as this, could have happened on this scale without it breaking as a massive public story beforehand. And by 2014, this was a national issue, one that had led to great anger in our country, and much of the rest of the world looking on in absolute horror. They simply couldn't fathom that something like this had happened in the United Kingdom. And yet ever since then, there have been a few inquiries, but very little has happened. This is a stain on our country in every way. It's one of the worst things I think that has ever happened.
I think he's got a point. They estimate, James, there could be as many as 250,000 victims, mostly vulnerable young white girls, many of them underage. And of course, the perpetrators of this horror, this national scandal, were rape gangs primarily comprised of Muslim men of Pakistani heritage. And it is for this reason that people like Ellie Reynolds, they say the government's trying to get away from focusing on that because they don't like the idea of pointing at that ethnicity because they like to encourage the Muslim vote, etc., etc., etc. So the victim girls, 4 of them resigned from the inquiry last week, saying this is a cover-up. That's what Ellie says. He says this isn't an inquiry. This is an attempt at a cover-up. Nigel Farage saying Labour is letting the nation down. I mean, you know, people could say, oh, you're cashing in, you're making a political issue of this. Well, I think it's the responsible thing of any opposition party to do, because quite palpably Labour is letting the nation down and letting the victims down by dragging their heels on this inquiry. They can't even find someone to chair it. They're now saying that they don't think they can start it until next year. And Ellie Reynolds and the other girls say that they're pretty convinced that basically Keir Starmer doesn't want this ever to start because it'll be embarrassing for his government.
Well, I think it was Churchill who said that criticism is like pain in the body. It draws attention to a state of maladjusted affairs, and certainly with this press conference yesterday, that's what Nigel Farage was trying to do, pointing to the issues in terms of the inquiry process. These are long-standing, of course, and go way back in terms of things like the infected blood inquiry, COVID inquiry, post office, etc. But I think in the case of these rape gang victims, those who've been groomed and worse, I think that it's very clear that people want to see justice done because it's been dragged on for many, many years. I think in terms of some of his criticisms were certainly valid. He talked about child abuse with a real degree of dignity, I think, in terms of his comments. But I think, yeah, I mean, clearly you look at the demographics, you look at how the vastness of London, 10 million people, it would almost seem statistically improbable for there not to be something like a rape gang scandal having on in this capital. And the Express last week reported on 7 different cases of people coming forward with their stories. I suspect that if resources were put into this, many more cases may sadly be uncovered. So I'm sure this will be an issue of concern to Farage and reform going forward. Ellie Reynolds, as you say there, Kevin, spoke very eloquently. And these women have a voice, and they are determined to use their voice to ensure justice for the many other girls who never got that in the first place.
And the Met Police now revealing that they're investigating potentially 9,000 historical cases of sexual abuse by rape gangs. So Sadiq Khan maintaining, pretending that we don't have a problem here in the capital, that is becoming untenable. He needs to get real about this. He really does. James, excellent to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time. James Hill there, the brilliant deputy political editor of The Spectator. When we come back, still with the grooming gangs, I'm afraid we're going to talk about this dreadful gang in Dundee who have just been jailed. We'll talk to the local MSP representative up there. So that next, stick around.
Breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain?
Yeah.
Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, good morning again. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan. Let's talk about the grooming gang scandal, the rape gang scandal. We've got to stop calling them grooming gangs. It's such a euphemism. They're rapists. Well, it's always good news when one of these gangs, one of these dreadful gangs, gets caught and gets jailed. And that's happened up in Scotland, where 4 men and 1 woman who plied their victims aged between 16 and 30 with drugs, mostly crack cocaine, at various properties between 2021 and 2022 up there in Dundee, in Scotland. Well, they've all been done. The gang leader, the ringleader, a guy called Marian Companasio, he's 38, is known as the winking, smirking pimp, always smiling. You can see him there in the middle. There's the woman to the left. Now, 3 of these people went on the run and were extradited back to Scotland, and they have been sentenced to between 24 and 10 years each. 24 years, 20 years, 12 years, 10 years, 8 years. So they've all gone down for a considerable amount of time. So that is good news. However, it does beg the question, how is this still going on? It is around the country. Let's hope it's not in Scotland. Let's talk to the local MSP for the Scottish Conservatives. He's the representative for Berwickshire, Roxburgh and Selkirk, John Lamont. John, thank you for joining us.
Good morning. I should clarify, first of all, I'm not the local MSP. I'm the MP for the Scottish Borders, which is a little bit further away from Dundee, but I'm very involved in this issue.
Of course. Well, as I was saying, John, good news that this gang has gone down, and what a dreadful bunch they were, using crack cocaine primarily to drug these girls and to abuse them on a serial basis at various properties. This is a syndrome that we've seen going on all over the country. Luring these girls in. I bet you it was the woman that you lured them in. Very often these grooming gangs have a resident lady who seems to be the one who tempts the girls into this sort of den of iniquity. Now, these girls sucked in, given crack cocaine and then serially abused. So it's good that this gang have been caught, but we do know, John, all around the country, not just in Scotland, the rape gang scourge, the scandal, the horror is still going on. Do you fear Scotland still has a problem?
I do. I mean, this is a truly, truly horrific crime. It is good news, as you say, Kevin, that this gang was caught and they have been punished. But this is not the first time this has happened in Scotland. As you'll know, a few years ago, a gang of 55 strong, based in Glasgow, they were asylum seekers, were convicted, a mass grooming gang, effectively. And I feel, and I know from the conversations I've had with many of the victims of these grooming gangs, that this is a problem in Scotland as much as it's a problem in the rest of the UK. And what I can't understand is why the Scottish Government will not have an inquiry into grooming gangs in Scotland, or indeed why this Labour government, Jess Phillips, won't extend the UK inquiry into Scotland as well, which are both options which both governments are currently denying to the victims of these horrible, horrible crimes.
So do you feel with the Scottish Government, John, do you feel you have a similar situation, a similar syndrome, if you like, that we have down here in London, where we have this bizarre spectacle of our mayor Sadiq Khan, or Sir Sadiq Khan, as he likes to be known these days. God knows why he got that knighthood. Effectively denying that it's happening. About a month or so ago in the London Assembly, he was quizzed by the Tory leader, Susan Hall, saying, oh, rape, we have reason to believe. There's a load of evidence saying it's going on big time here in London. And Sadiq Khan went like this. He said, do you mean county lines gangs? She said, no. We mean rape gangs, grooming gangs, if you must call them that. You know, you must have read about it in the papers. You must have seen it on television. Sadiq Khan acting as if he'd never heard of the syndrome of rape gangs. So we have a mayor who seems to be deliberately denying this scourge, and we're never going to get to grips with it, as perhaps you won't in Scotland, unless the authorities accept they have a problem. Here in London, the Met Police, while the mayor says, oh, well, I don't know what you're talking about, rape gangs, never heard of them, the Met Police have just announced that they are investigating potentially 9,000 historical cases of rape gang sexual abuse. If we have people like Sadiq Khan and the Scottish Government not accepting that this is going on, it's going to continue, isn't it?
You're absolutely right, Kevin. You're on the money as ever. And it does raise big questions about why certain aspects of the political class are refusing to recognise this problem, or refusing to allow this inquiry to take place, whether it's a proper inquiry at UK level or in Scotland with a Scotland-only inquiry. There's a sense of denial that this has ever happened. But I've met some of the victims of these horrific gangs. I attended Rupert Lowe's event in the House of Commons, and there was many victims of grooming gangs at that event in Scotland, and they are desperate for justice. They're desperate for an inquiry so they can get answers, but also they want to ensure that this never happens again. And the same challenges that exist in London, which you've identified, and other parts of England, exist in Scotland. And there needs to be a recognition by the Scottish Government, and I believe the UK Government. We're still part of the United Kingdom. We maybe have a devolved Parliament and a devolved government in Scotland, but we're still part of the UK, and this is a UK-wide problem. And I don't believe some of these grooming gangs are not operating on a UK-wide basis as well. And that is why I believe Jess Phillips and Labour, the Labour government here at Westminster, needs to extend the inquiry to be a proper national inquiry, including all parts of our United Kingdom, which includes Scotland, so that those poor victims of these gangs are given the justice that they deserve.
Absolutely. We're just looking at some of the pictures of one of the properties where this sordid exploitation unfolded. Yeah, I was going to ask you that last question, really, John. I mean, the Labour government right now is not exactly clothing itself in glory, is it? I mean, these delays on this promised national inquiry, public inquiry, I think are turning into a scandal in themselves. The government saying we can't find anyone to chair the proceedings. Oh, it looks as if we can't really start them until next year. Jess Phillips, the so-called safeguarding minister, absolutely, well, basically calling the girls, and we're looking at Ellie Reynolds there, who is one of the girls, so she attended this press conference with Farage yesterday. The girls saying, look, the reason these girls have resigned, Ellie and four others, I think, last week, resigned from the proposed inquiry. The reason they've done this is because they say the government is trying to stop them focusing on the ethnicity and the religion of the majority of the perpetrators. The fact is that these rape gangs predominantly are made up of Muslim men of Pakistani origin. Ellie has become something of a friend of mine. I know her story. She says they keep telling us we can't talk about that. They're trying to widen the remit so we don't focus on the people in the damn gangs. So Labour has got to get real, stop playing politics with this, stop worrying about the Muslim votes, and start thinking about the estimated 250,000 victims. It's a scandal, these delays, isn't it?
It's a complete scandal. And what we have to remember, Kevin, is where Labour started on this issue. They started by accusing those of us who were calling for the inquiries as right-wing whistleblowers, and they've been dragged kicking and screaming to accept the principle that there should be some sort of inquiry, but they're now doing everything in their power to undermine that inquiry, whether it's extending its brief, delays in appointing the chairman, undermining the victims who are sitting on the panel. They're doing everything they possibly can to slow this whole process up and stop getting to the point of getting the inquiry started, getting justice, getting answers, and fundamentally, and most importantly, stopping this ever happening again. Because I sadly believe many grooming gangs are still operating across the UK. This is not a historical problem. This is going on right now across the length and breadth of our country. And that's why it's imperative that this government, this Labour government and the SNP government in Scotland takes action now to protect future victims from this awful, awful crime.
Well said, John. Thank you so much for your time. John Lamont, MSP, there, Scottish Conservatives member for Berwickshire, Roxburgh and Selkirk. When we come back, we are going to be focusing on again, we'll be talking about the migrant release. I'll just read you a couple of texts. We've got lots of texts coming in. Get your phone calls in, by the way. We'll try and didn't take enough calls yesterday. So 03444991000. Isn't it right? You know, if this government say they can get rid of Hadush Kabatu, the sex offender from Epping, who's got a year-long sentence, suddenly, we're going to deport him because he was mistakenly left out. He's going to go this week. Why can't they get rid of the other 10,000 foreign prisoners we've got? Why can't we deport them? Free up some cell space so we don't have to keep releasing murderers and rapists and drug dealers, which they keep doing. Get rid of the foreigners, deport them. If it's easy to deport Hadush Kabatu, then it must be easy to deport the others, right? 03444991000. Here's one from Gurdeep. He says, brainless Lammy showed his true colours yesterday when he laughed out loud when Jenrick called him Calamity Lammy. Actually, he laughed all through Jenrick's speech. This was a serious speech, and all Lammy could do was laugh. Just shows what he is really like, that he's really not livid. He even promised Parliament that this vile creature, Kabatu, will definitely be deported. Well, we'll see about that. Another one from Simon. We have to change the way the government works in Britain. People in the prison, if they're not nationals, remove them with a phone call to the country of their origin if that can be proved. Talk to the corresponding diplomat and agree, exchange, removal, etc. It really is that damn easy. I think you're probably right, Simon. They just need to start doing it. Yes, more of that when we come back. Stay tuned.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We'll be talking about prisons. We're talking about the release of Harish Karbatu, the farcical release this morning. Of course, the Prison Officers Union saying don't blame the prison officers. Don't blame the prison staff. Well, I do believe the chain of blame should go right to the top. David Lammy, the Justice Secretary, James Timpson, the Prisons Minister, the Governor of Chelmsford Jail, where this joke release happened, a guy called Mark Howard. They should all take the blame. But also, you know, we can't have a culture in this country where the guy who sort of opened the door and said, "Here, there's the station," doesn't also take the blame. You know, it's on the front of the Guardian. Say, well, you can't, don't make the prison officers scapegoats. Don't be so ridiculous. They're not scapegoats. They did it. There are all sorts of people at fault as well, but you can't exonerate them. Oh, it's not their fault. Yes, it is their fault, along with many other people. Well, let's talk to someone who knows all about this sort of thing. He's a former prison officer and he's a host of the Real Porridge podcast, Sam Samsworth. Morning, Sam.
Well, how are you doing, mate?
I'm good, I'm good. I learnt something yesterday from a former prison governor called Vanessa Frake. And
yep.
She said that one of the problems at Chelmsford, and indeed other prisons, is this, that prison officer staffing levels are so short, such a shortage that the gates, as it were, the people manning the doors and the gates of the prison, are not actually prison officers. They're kind of contracted people who specifically let people in and out. Therefore, those are the ones who allowed Harish Karbatu to leave the prison. And when he came back 4 or 5 times and he kept saying, "Excuse me, I'm not sure you were supposed to release me," in the end one of them said, "Oh, for God's sake, the station's up there on the left. Why don't you just go?" Although I do think that the people who let him out have to take some of the blame, it's surprising to me that the people manning the gates, the big locked gates of a prison, are not actually prison officers.
Okay. So firstly, operational support grades they are, yeah?
Yeah.
So the assist prison
Oh, hang on, we've lost the sound
officers, usually minimum prisoner contact.
Yeah.
Have we lost you?
Yeah, no, you're back. Yeah, don't worry.
Are we back?
Yes, you are.
Right, so these people work in specific areas, so they will be trained in that area. The fact they're not prison officers, for me, is not the real problem. Successive governments for the last 25 years have reduced staffing levels and budgets in prisons that they've just become impossible to recruit.
Okay, yeah. What did you say these gate people are called? What's their job again?
OSGs, operational support grades.
Okay, so operational support grades. Okay, fair enough. Perhaps they are. But whoever let him out, it's their fault, isn't it? It's his fault or her fault.
I'm going to disagree with you.
Well, hang on. They're the ones who let him out. They're the ones who 5 times he came back, 5 times they said, "Get out of here, get to the station." It's their fault. It's that person's fault. I'm not saying it's not the prison governor's fault as well, or David Lammy, or the prison, but it's their fault. It's not. You cannot exonerate that person.
Them people will escort people to the gate and release them.
Well, they shouldn't have done, should they? He's a sex offender doing a year. Why did they do that?
Well, let me explain. So that person, is just the final part of the trail. There should be a paperwork trail. What I can't believe, quite honestly, with this guy is, do you recognise that guy?
What?
Would you recognise him?
Well, in his prison tracksuit, carrying a plastic bag full of his possessions.
I absolutely would recognise him. I can't believe that.
Yeah.
It does go way higher up. It's not the prison service. It might find it controversial, but they're strained that much now. Prison reception is an incredibly busy place to work.
Well, okay, hang on a sec. Look, I get that, and I do understand there are staff shortages, and as I say, I think the buck needs to stop at the top. I think that prison governor, Mark Howard, needs the finger pointing at him. I think the prison minister, James Timpson, needs to answer a few questions. And I think David Lammy, the Justice Secretary, needs to be in the frame as well. But the people who actually let him go, it's their fault. They've got to be in the frame as well, right?
They can only work with what's presented in front of them.
No. They
Honestly,
let this...
no, listen.
You said everybody could recognise him. They let him out.
I know they did.
So they made a mistake, didn't they, Sam?
No, they followed the paperwork.
They didn't make a mistake.
No.
They didn't make a mistake letting Hadush Kabatu out. I would suggest, Sam, with all due respect, they did make a mistake.
OK, listen, just hear me out a minute. If that paperwork said he was due release, they're going to release him. That's it. So, for me...
Well, we don't know that the paperwork said that, do we?
Well, we don't without seeing it. I mean, obviously, they're looking at the release procedures.
Who did the paperwork? Who would have done the paperwork?
There'll be a big chain. There should be warrants to hold someone in prison.
Who made that decision? Who would have signed off his release?
The paperwork would say that...
Yeah, but who signed off the paper? Someone somewhere made an egregious mistake and they've got to be blamed.
You would have to look at everybody, yeah? Before someone's released...
No, I wouldn't have to
Let me
look
explain.
at... No, I wouldn't. I want to look at the person who signed off on releasing Hadush Kabatu. Don't blame the chain. Don't blame the system. Don't blame staff shortages. Let's get real. Someone somewhere made a terrible mistake and they need to be sacked, right?
Can I go
Yes,
again?
do they need to be sacked?
Firstly...
No, Sam. Whoever signed off on this needs to be sacked, right?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? What do you mean you don't know? You mean that wasn't a mistake?
Yes, obviously it shouldn't have been released. However,
fire them
somewhere in administration, from the courts, the paperwork, I can see that he should not have been released.
Yeah, I think that might be the case, Sam. I think perhaps he shouldn't have been released, yeah. I think we can agree on that. Whoever is responsible for signing off on his release needs to be sacked. I'd also suggest that Mark Howard, the governor of Chelmsford Prison, needs to be sacked. Personally, I'd sack James Timpson, the prison minister, and David Lammy, the Justice Secretary, as well. But this is Britain, and no one ever carries the cane.
I would.
No one ever takes the blame, do they?
I would definitely go to the top.
Yeah, and also the person who signed off on it. And maybe the people on the gates. They should spot, you know. Anyway, Sam, I take your point. The Real Porridge podcast, worth a listen, yeah?
Yes.
OK, mate. I'm not blaming you, but you can see where I'm coming from. Good to talk to you, man. Sam Samworth, former prison officer and host of the Real Porridge podcast. I think, you know, he seems like a lovely guy, and I'm sure his podcast is great. But, come on! So, whoever signed off on this, sack them! Make someone carry the goddamn can. It's just ridiculous. Oh, no, you can't blame it. It's the system. It's the system. Oh, yeah. So who would have signed on? Oh, it's a chain. What do you mean it's a chain? A chain doesn't sign a form. Someone did. And I would say the people on the gates, he goes, he said, I can't believe that nobody recognised him. Well, I think he's talking about when he's wandering the streets of London after being released. Well, what about the people on the gates? Why didn't they recognise him? It might be worth them appraising themselves of what their celebrity prisoners look like. Might help, mightn't it? So, yeah, come on. Someone's got to carry the can on this. Actually, more than one. One officer has been suspended. And I think that's not nearly enough. And that wouldn't be right if we're just going to say, well, it's all down to him or her, whoever that is. That's not right either. But, you know, don't blame everyone. Don't make the prison officers, the prison staff, the scapegoats. I want to make them the scapegoats. It's their fault. I also want to make Lammy a scapegoat. I want to make Timpson a scapegoat. And I want to make the governor of the prison a scapegoat. Is that all right? They are scapegoats. They did it. Right, well, when we come back, we're going to talk about shrinkflation, you know, where your chocolate bars, everything's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I'm quite a fan of horseradish. So suddenly, horseradish, you use a big jar. Same price, the jar's now about that big. That's the new thing, isn't it? We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
More people have crossed the channel in 2025 already than crossed last year, and Labour are only removing under 10,000 people a year. It's over 30,000 that are arriving a year via the channel alone. So you think, well, that would mean that there's more and more people increasing, and the spend on hotels is going up under Labour as well.
The average cost, 32,000 migrants living in those 200 hotels, about 200 hotels the Prime Minister was talking about there, budgeted cost for £2.1 billion a year.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk about shrinkflation. This is the syndrome where, you know, you go get your favourite chocolate bar. It's the same price. And as you put it in your pocket, you realise, hang on, this is much easier to get in my pocket than it usually is. And you look at it, and it used to be that big, and it's now that big. They're doing it all the time. Kerrygold, the butter company, has basically took 50 grams off its standard issue, selling at the same price. If you get heartburn, Gaviscon, amazingly, that's the indigestion relief medicine, has shrunk from 600 mils to 500 mils at Sainsbury's, but the price remains 14 quid, and so on and so forth. Toothpaste has gone from £1.30 to £2, but the amount has gone down and down and down. So you know the syndrome. Apparently Sainsbury's Scottish oats have shrunk from 1 kilo to 500 grams. So that's like half the amount. And the price has increased to £2.10. It used to be £1.25. So much less of the product, more of the price. But often the only thing you see the difference in is the price. Let's talk to the consumer expert, formerly deputy money editor at The Times, Holly Mead. Hello, Holly.
Good morning.
Yeah, this is something that I think really annoys consumers, this kind of covert, secret price increase. Mostly, not always, sometimes they just put the price up anyway, but mostly you go, oh yeah, that's the price I pay for my favourite chocolate or this jar of coffee, and then you get it home or you take a look at it and go, hang on, it's half the size of what it used to be. Shrinkflation. I mean, it's bordering on kind of almost illegal, isn't it? Bordering on a kind of a theft by putting up prices without telling us.
It's just a real kick in the teeth for consumers who are already really struggling with the rising cost of the weekly food shop. The average shopping basket is about 30% higher today than it was in 2023, and households are struggling. And so food manufacturers and supermarkets, they kind of know that there's only so long they can keep putting those prices up. So what do? They get a bit creative and they keep the price the same, but the product gets smaller. And people are just having to shop smarter and smarter all the time and use every trick in the book to keep that household shop every week in the realms of affordability. And it's getting harder to do.
It's very sort of sneaky on the part of the stores and the product manufacturers, though, isn't it? They're kind of conning their customers.
It feels that way, doesn't it? Because I think, no one wants to go and do the weekly food shop. That is not a fun task. So many people, particularly, time-poor parents who are squeezing it in between getting the kids to clubs and getting work done and the chores, you kind of do it on autopilot. So stores are relying on you just to reach for those same products that you do every week. They put the products with the highest product margin within the easiest reach, or often on the deals on the end, and they're just relying on you to just almost blindly choose those. And we really need to use any of the tools that we can to keep those prices down. So it will take a little bit longer, but just looking at that price per gram or price per milliliter rather than the overall price, which can often hide a markup that you might not be aware of. Things like that are just things you can do to try and keep those prices.
Absolutely, and watch out for chocolate, coffee and porridge. These are the main culprits. Holly, great to talk to you. When we come back after the news, we're going to talk to Danny Kruger from the Reform UK Party. So stick around for that, stay tuned.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake?
It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, standing in for Mike Graham on Morning Glory. Mike, as you know, is taking some leave. There's an investigation going on into a post on Facebook, and all of us have to wait. That goes for you, it goes for me, it goes for Mike, it goes for everyone. So until such time as we know what's going to happen, the show must go on. So let's get on with it. First of all, this hour, very pleased to welcome to the show the Reform UK MP for East Wiltshire, Danny Kruger. Hello, Danny.
Morning, Kevin.
Good morning. Now, it's a big day for you, press conference later, and you've been put in charge, shall we say, of Reform's vision for this country, for this state going forward. You have big plans for the civil service, for example. In my view, you quite rightly point out that this country has no need for 500,000 civil servants. It has no need for some of the very expensive buildings that are hired and rented on the part of the government, on the part of civil service departments, especially since so many of these civil servants don't seem to ever come to their offices. They work from home. So you've been put in charge, Danny, of Reform's vision for the future, a leaner, meaner state, if you like. Tell me, well, we'll try to outline what it is that you intend to do if, and I'm sure you would prefer to say when, Nigel Farage becomes Prime Minister.
Well, no, it's an if, isn't it? The one thing we can't control is the election. But if we win, Nigel Farage, and by the way, he's responsible for the vision, not me. I'm in charge of preparing for implementation. What we want to do on day one is to grip the government machine. I think the reason that so much doesn't work in our country is because ministers, A, they've got the wrong ideas. They don't really believe in the interests, the values of the British people. But even if they did, the functions of the state are not under their proper control. And you get ministers of all parties complaining about this. So the first thing we've got to do is to make sure the civil service actually respects ministers and that ministers respond to Parliament, that are accountable to Parliament. And that's simple principle of a democracy that we've lost. So there's changes to the civil service code, the way the rules work. But the other thing is to get the costs under control. And for both those reasons, to make sure ministers are in charge and to cut the costs, we're proposing to close a whole number of big, expensive government buildings spread across the SW1 postal district and restore Whitehall to Whitehall. What we call Whitehall used to be just that street, you know, that runs up from Parliament Square past Downing Street. That's where the government of the UK should be located, not spread out across SW1. So there are tens of millions of pounds to be saved from each of these buildings that are leased by the taxpayer. So we will close those, cut the headcount of the civil service dramatically, and relocate the departments of state back into Whitehall itself and put them properly under the control of the cabinet.
Also, I think at the heart of your plans to change Britain, if you like, to make the state smaller, is to change the way the civil service actually operates. You talk, you interview in the papers today, you talk about how you don't want a continuation of the system whereby Prime Minister Nigel Farage sits down and, I don't know, Chancellor of the Exchequer Danny Kruger sits down and the relevant private secretaries, the head of the civil service, said to you, well, this is the way it operates. Got any, do you want a new desk? Do you want a new decoration? And we'll carry on as was. What you want, I think, Danny, is to get back to a proper system whereby ministers and prime ministers and secretaries of state tell the civil service what they're going to do, as opposed to, I think a system's been going on for some time since Tony Blair, the other way round.
Exactly. So there's a sort of theatrical moment that we're all familiar with when a new government comes in. The Prime Minister goes into number 10, opens that famous door, and then the Cabinet Secretary, who's the head of the civil service, greets him or her, and then what happens? They're escorted into the cabinet room and sat down and more or less, given the rules of the House by the civil servants. And they say, Prime Minister, we've looked at your manifesto and this is how we propose to implement it. Whereas what we're going to do is to go in and say, thank you very much, this is how we're going to implement it. These are our plans. We've drafted legislation. We've got new codes for ministers and civil servants drawn up. We're going to rearrange Whitehall itself in the following way. And if you would kindly execute the plans that we have prepared, we'd be very grateful. That's the plan. And if they don't do it, and this is the other critical point, they need to be properly answerable to ministers. The myth at the moment is that the civil servants serve politicians. In fact, they serve themselves. And by the way, listen, let's not make this personal. They're decent, good, very capable people in Whitehall. The problem is the structure of power is all concentrated not in the hands of the Prime Minister and the Cabinet, but in the hierarchy of the civil service itself. That's what's got to change. Civil servants are unelected, they serve the government, and they should answer directly to ministers. That's what we're going to do.
And so what you're essentially saying, Danny, is the old image of this sort of Yes Minister comedy series, the sitcom, whereby civil servants basically treated their ministers and prime ministers like puppets on strings to be manipulated and made to do what the civil servants want. It's not a million miles from the truth today.
I mean, this is always the case. I mean, it is a remarkable thing how just relevant Yes Minister is. And it was written obviously it was in the 1980s, and this was the era of Margaret Thatcher, who was definitely in charge of the government. But she was also dealing with a system by which the unelected, I mean, they're doing it in what they think is the national interest. The problem is we've got a civil service, particularly now, not so much in those days, it's much worse now. We've got a civil service with a completely alien set of attitudes to the rest of the country. I mean, they are overwhelmingly Guardian reading, Remain voting, liberals. And there's obviously a place for that in our politics, but it shouldn't be dominant. And so what we need is civil servants who, A, reflect the attitudes of the country more generally, but also crucially, answer to the ministers. And that's only going to happen if we go in with a real intention to change things. So that means changing the rules, particularly changing the system of promotion, hiring and firing, also bringing in more political appointments. So, there's this great sort of aversion to the idea of politicizing government. Well, it is a political business. I mean, if we didn't have politics, we'd have pure bureaucracy, which is sort of what we do have, which itself is very politicized. What we need is the proper politics of a democracy. So that means, every other head of government in the world brings in a whole bunch of their own people who believe what they believe, who've worked with them in opposition, prepared the plans for government. They come in with them and take charge of the government machine. When a British government changes, the new ministers bring in a couple of 20-something special advisors. And as I say, the senior civil servants say, we'll take it from here, Minister. And that's what's got to change.
And so, in a sense, you know, you've got Zia Youssef is doing a doge around the various councils that Reform UK has won. Presumably, hopefully, you'll win more at the next local elections in May. But you're going to sort of be doing that on a national level, making government more efficient. Generally speaking, how did we get to this point, though, Danny? I mean, when just the sheer number, you think, hang on. There's more than 500,000 civil servants working for the government. How did we get to this point? I believe you point the finger at Tony Blair, that he has bureaucratised this country more and more, and then your former party were no slouches at it either.
That's right. So, yeah, so 500,000 civil servants just serving national government, you know, millions more working in the public services, local government as well. And by the way, Zia Youssef is overseeing the whole programme of transformation that we are leading, including at the national level. And we've learned a lot from the experience of local government, how obstructive and difficult and bureaucratic it is and how hard it is to make change. That's what we're underway there. But for the national level, yes, I mean, the answer to your question is, the civil service grew enormously under Tony Blair. When the financial crisis hit and the Cameron government came in, the numbers started coming down. Then I'm afraid to say, this is the most shameful thing, after Brexit, when we took back control of our government, the civil service went zooming up. So rather like with, you know, after Brexit, immigration went up, exactly what the Brexit voters didn't want to happen, happened. Whitehall grew, immigration grew. That's the dysfunction of the British state. So if we could just get back to the pre-Brexit size of the civil service, we'd be saving billions of pounds, tens of billions of pounds a year. And that's just the beginning, because actually we need to undo the Blair era reforms. Firstly, the growth of the civil service, but also this great bureaucratisation, this outsourcing of responsibility from Parliament to the civil service, to the judiciary, to quangos, to a whole range of unelected bodies, including international courts. We've got to restore the power of Parliament and the power of ministers who are answerable to Parliament. That's where the government, the source of government, the source of power needs to be. It will be a smaller state, a leaner and more agile state, and it will be one that answers to Parliament and to the public.
What would you do, for example, you're probably aware, the Ministry of Defence has 60 diversity officers. They call themselves Protecting the Protectors. What would you do about those 60 diversity officers in the Ministry of Defence?
Well,
please tell me you'd get rid of them.
Well, I mean, I wonder if they're civilians, yes, let them go. If they're actually armed forces personnel, perhaps they should go and bolster our denuded front line. So obviously that's totally wrong and inappropriate. I mean, there are so many functions in Whitehall. I mean, there's over 30,000 people in policy across the system. You've got thousands of people in HR. You've got comms is enormous. You know, over 5,000 comms officers in Whitehall. I mean,
yeah, and they never answer the phone, by the way.
Well, quite. I mean, the paradox is we all know this from the real world. The bigger the bureaucracy, the less efficient it is, the less work people do, and harder it is for the customer. I mean, back in the day, you know, Sir Robert Peel, who founded the police and ran the Home Office, and this was in the days when the Home Office basically did everything, all domestic policy. He had less than 20 officials working for him. You know, when Lloyd George took his famous People's Budget through in 1911, he had 25 officials. That was the Treasury was 25 people. You know, these people were running an empire, and you know, we do not need these vastly swollen offices of state. We need, and by the way, technology means we could do so much more. We could outsource so much more and streamline and make government much more efficient, as has increasingly is happening in certain areas. I mean, the Passport Office is a success story. That's an example of where governments do quite a good job now, much cheaper than it used to. So we can improve the system and make it much cheaper.
A couple of news questions, if you don't mind, Danny, before you go. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and good luck with your press conference later. Do you expect this migrant sex offender who was so farcically released last Friday, 3 days on the run, Hanush Kabuti. The government actually said when he was caught on Sunday, he'll be deported on Tuesday. That's today. That was then watered down to he'll be deported within a week. They're now saying he'll be deported as soon as possible. Two questions on this. Do you expect him to be deported anytime soon? And if they can deport this guy, why aren't they setting about deporting other foreign prisoners to free up some jail space?
Well, they absolutely should be. In terms of what will happen in this case, I mean, I suppose I kind of expect that he will go because they're going to have the entire weight of the government making sure he does. The Prime Minister himself will be personally insisting that it happens. But that goes to the core of our problem, doesn't it? The state doesn't work. And, you know, you've got tens of thousands of people who should be deported, foreign criminals. And the Prime Minister can't take a personal interest in every single one of those. So we have a broken system. The answer to the problem is firstly by not allowing illegal immigrants into the country in the first place. That's the primary way to stop this problem. But in terms of those foreign nationals who commit crimes here, we need to absolutely speed up the deals that we're doing with other countries to take their nationals back. And we can be much more, we can use a much heavier stick on that. We can use our trade policy, our aid policy, our defence policy, foreign policy. We can freeze these countries out of the sort of the embrace of the UK internationally. And, you know, these are developing countries that need our help and our support internationally. So, of course, if we insist on it, they will take their foreign nationals back. That's what we need to do, including, by the way, into Europe. I mean, there's a whole load of Polish criminals that don't get removed, Romanians. So we need to do whatever is necessary to get these foreign criminals out of our country.
Absolutely. Last question. Nigel Farage hosted a very good, I thought, press conference yesterday on the rape gang scandal, flanked by Ellie Reynolds, one of the victims. She, of course, is saying that this proposed rape gang inquiry is nothing more than a cover-up. They're trying to remove the focus from the culprits, who are mainly Muslim men of Pakistani origin. The Labour government don't like the idea of pointing the finger at them. We know that the rape gang scourge is continuing all over the country. We've just focused on a story in Dundee where a gang of 5 have just been jailed for terrible activities up in Scotland. So it's still going on. We have a mayor here in London, Sadiq Khan, who seems to be in a kind of denial, saying that it's definitely not happening here, whereas the Met Police has just announced we'll be having a look at 9,000 potential historical cases of rape, gang, sexual abuse of young, predominantly white, vulnerable girls. What would reform, given, let's imagine you came to power tomorrow, what would you do about this entire mess of a situation? The inquiry and the fact it's still going on, and the fact we have authorities and officials like Sadiq Khan who still want to pretend it's not going on.
Well, quickly, in answer to the question what we would do now, we would make it absolutely clear that the police are required to pursue these allegations of criminality without any concern for what they call community relations, meaning basically they have to soft pedal where there's a suspicion or indeed evidence of particular minority groups being predominantly responsible. I mean, they can't let political correctness get in the way of their investigations and of justice, and we can direct them to that effect. And then on the question of what we do about the overall system, the situation and the historic scandal of these gangs, what Nigel is proposing is that Parliament uses its teeth, which it does have and very rarely uses. It's an interesting feature of our system. And Parliament should set up a commission that works across party to get to the bottom of what has happened. And it can use semi-legal powers to do that, to compel witnesses and to summon evidence. Clearly, the government has lost all legitimacy, doesn't have the trust of victims or the communities anymore. So Parliament now, I think, has to step forward and take responsibility to conduct a proper investigation of its own into what has happened, so that we can bring truth and shed light on this terribly dark episode in our nation's history, and ensure that when Reform get into power, as I hope we will have a proper understanding of how to prevent this ever happening again.
Danny Kruger, thank you so much for your time. Good to talk to you. Danny Kruger there, MP, Reform UK MP for East Wiltshire, will be announcing big reforms or potential reforms that Reform UK want to bring in later today. He wants to shrink the size of the civil service. I mean, it's a grotesque number, isn't it? 500,000, more than 500,000. That's just working for the national government alone. Around the country, millions of people employed by town halls and local government. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. Should we play a voice note?
Morning. Good show as usual. Just had your conversation with Samworth, whatever his name is, Mr. Porridge podcast. Just wanted to clarify a couple of things. Maybe it will help you understand. So the chain of custody for a prisoner is signed off by a few people, not just one. It goes from the governor and it goes down until the person at the gate is told exactly what to do, and they follow orders. It's a little bit, just a little bit, like the military, like the army. If you disobey orders, you're in trouble. So these guys are just following orders. Someone's given the wrong command, and it's probably the governor. So, I mean, in that sort of situation, when you're told to do something, whether if you agree with it or not, you do not want to lose your job, you will just do it.
Yeah, it's Penny there. Well, here's the thing, Penny. OK, you say that a number of people will sign these release forms. A number. There's a chain. OK, every single person that signed the release form of Britain's best-known asylum seeker sex offender, Halish Kabati, they all get fired. How about that? Eh? Let's do that. And I'd still fire the people on the gate. I mean, I'm not a sort of sack them, get rid of them and all that kind of stuff. But it's about time in this country that people started getting punished for their mistakes. If you don't punish people for their mistakes, they're going to make them again and again and again. It's absurd that we no longer blame anybody for making incredible balls-ups. We've got to start doing that again, don't you think? When we come back, we'll talk to the Sun columnist Ross Clark. Stick around.
Where's the United Kingdom?
Behind you.
Where?
Oh, I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
Very good.
Oh, Stick Kid's coming forward.
The law came in like 20-minute notice.
Oh, he's come
and
up
I
to
think it's
speak and
fantastic.
Trump
And we have
sent
so
him
many
away.
others, and just so many others. And it's such a compliment to what we're doing, because what we've done is something very unique and very special. So it's perhaps the wealthiest and most powerful.
Right, cut him now. Cut that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, let's get straight to my next guest. We've been talking about the asylum seeker scandal, this migrant crisis, which is, and it's very much is a scandal at the moment, because yesterday a report by the House of Commons Select Committee on Home Affairs revealed the astonishing scale of the amount of money being wasted by suckers at the Home Office who've had rings run round them by private contractors. These people who work at the Home Office, they've never worked in the private sector, public money, they've got no financial imperative, they don't understand things like that. And these private contractors who organise putting our asylum seekers in expensive hotels, they are making a fortune conning civil servants into giving them billions and billions of pounds they don't need to be given. Let's talk to Sun columnist. He's on page 10 today under the headline, "Asylum Hotel Scandal isn't just about failure to tackle migration, it's about lack of care with our cash." Warm welcome to Ross Clark. Hi, Ross.
Good morning. Hi.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, putting up asylum seekers in four-star hotels was all set to cost us, we taxpayers, long-suffering taxpayers, over the next 10 years, £4.5 billion. Enough in itself. But it turns out that these private contractors, they keep going back to the Home Office. I don't understand, we've got to fix the fences, we've got to trim the hedges, we've got to get more, do up the kitchens and all that. So this £4.5 billion, which we were going to have to be paying, has now gone up to £15.3 billion. And the Select Committee on Home Affairs, the Commons Select Committee, has produced this report. She said basically it's these stupid civil servants in the Home Office, who couldn't run a bath. They've been conned by these private contractors into giving over far more of our money, taxpayers' money, than they have to. As you say, it's about a lack of care with our cash, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got echoes of the private finance initiative. That was Tony Blair's government's great sort of means of trying to fund schools and hospitals, if you remember that. And the government did these sort of deals with commercial operators who were, very clever in inserting extra clauses in. I think there was one case where a hospital was the civil servants had negotiated it down to the price of the toast which they were going to serve for breakfast for patients, but they'd forgotten the marmalade. So then, of course, the private company was able to charge a fortune for the marmalade on top. It was that silly. I mean, when civil servants sort of try and do these contracts, they end up like sort of confused octogenarians being relieved of their life savings by cold calling scammers. They just seem to sort of fold over and sort of, sign there, yeah, sure we do. And well, it goes beyond the migrant hotel scandal, which you said there. There's all kinds of areas of public spending where it's just got completely out of control. And in a few weeks' time, Rachel Reeves is going to stand up in the Commons and force us all to pay extra taxes, possibly raising income tax, the basic rate of income tax for first time since the 1970s. No, we can't possibly have any cuts, she'll say. We've got to preserve vital public services. But at the same time, you've got all this waste going on. And, this migrant hotel scandal is going to make it very, very much harder for her to sort of sell a tough budget of tax rises to us when we know how our money is being frittered away.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Ross, because I was doing this story last week and it's worth repeating. She's going to come to us next month in November, with the budget from hell. So we don't understand, she'll be talking about black holes here and black holes there. She won't be talking about these of course will be the £20 billion black hole left by the Tories. She won't be talking about the £40 billion black hole that the Office of Budget Responsibility say that she has caused, that Labour have caused. She won't be referring to that. But anyway, she's going to come to say, it's crisis, public spending and the vital public services. I need your taxes. I need to break all my promises. I'm going to tax you more. Sorry about that, but you understand these are vital items of expenditure by a decent government trying to do the right thing. Well, one of the things we're going to, we could point the finger at so many things, but I discovered last week, I'm sure you saw it as well, that one of the things that we taxpayers, we long-suffering taxpayers, are going to be funding with these vital tax rises is £111 million to Pakistan so it can pay for condoms, a family planning programme in Pakistan, £111 million. And we could go on. Now, when you say to people, I've got to put the taxes up, and then they discover that they're putting the taxes up so that people in Pakistan can plan their families, we're going to go, hang on a second, I've got a better idea. Why don't you not put our taxes up and not give Pakistan £111 million for condoms? You see what I'm saying?
Yes, well, I mean, that's the international aid budget. Well, that's a farce which goes back many years when David Cameron wanted to set a target of spending 0.7% of GDP on international aid. And when you define it as an achievement simply to spend money, spend a certain amount of money, you guarantee waste, because what's the easiest way of spending money? To waste it. And we see this over and over again. I mean, my favourite aid project, and this has taken place in several countries. I think Moldova was one of them, and others as well. We had actually British government advisors going around advising foreign governments of how to balance their budgets. And then you look at
the blind leading the blind. That sort of springs to mind.
Yeah. And I mean, it's easy to remember. Talk about black holes. Rachel Reeves' infamous £22 billion black hole, which she blamed upon the Tories. I mean, you've got to remember, £9 billion of that black hole was the cost of public sector pay rises, which Rachel Reeves herself had just waved through, had absolutely nothing to do with the Tories. And of course, the government's blaming the Conservatives for these migrant hotel contracts, and fair enough, they were written under Conservative rules. But I mean, look at Labour's record during that time. Whenever the government tried to save a bit of money by taking the migrants out of hotels and putting them in, say, the Bibby Stockholm barge, that famous barge that was moored in Portland Harbour, the Labour Party sort of screamed outrage. It was, terrible that you can't put, asylum seekers in boats. That's, against human rights and so on, even though that barge had been lived in quite happily by generations of oil workers.
Yeah.
Nobody complained that their human rights were being abused.
Are you a fan? I don't know if you're a pop fan, Ross. I'm sure you are. Are you a fan of the Enza Girls?
I've never heard of the Enza
Well, I'll tell you who the Enza girls are. The Enza girls are Ethiopia's, or were Ethiopia's answer to the Spice Girls, who we, Britain, under the international aid budget, we sent the Enza girls £16 million to develop their pop career, to become Ethiopia's answer to the Spice Girls. We sent a load of money to Tanzania to teach them how to juggle and dance. The list goes on. My favourite was sending China money to teach the peasants how to grow rice. You'd have thought they might have already known that, and so on and so forth. But to go back to the migrant crisis, the asylum seeker hotel crisis, what you're pointing out in your excellent article on page 10 of The Sun today is just a few basic, economics on the part of some civil servants might save us not small fortunes, large fortunes. So, for example, the 110 or so asylum seekers staying at the Bell Hotel, the notorious Bell Hotel in Epping, they're costing us, like all asylum seekers do, £145 a night each. You said you've been onto Airbnb in the Epping area. And discovered many a place for bed and breakfast around Epping for £50 a night. These are the basic kind of economic investigations that our civil servants just don't carry out.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, if you're putting up a large number of people for a large period of time, you expect a discount on the normal cost of accommodation. It should be far cheaper than what it costs for you and I to book a hotel for the odd night. But instead, they're paying far more, 146 quid a night, 145 quid a night. I mean, this extraordinary sum to be paying night after night for large numbers of migrants. It should be a fraction of that. And yet they just don't seem to have the negotiating skills to beat the sort of private operators down. And the most absurd thing is that it turns out that some of these hotels have been housing migrants have actually sort of owned by companies linked to China.
Of course.
Yet more money we're shoveling in the direction of China courtesy of the UK taxpayer.
Oh, God. I mean, and don't get either of us starting on the amount of money we're wasting on crazy Ed Miliband's net zero insanity. Ross, a really good piece on the page 10 of The Sun today, and very good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. Ross Clark, their columnist, also writes for The Spectator, The Mail, you name it, he writes for them. Great guy. Should we go to break now? When we come back, I want to talk about Louis Theroux, the famous BBC documentary maker. He does a podcast. He seemed to think it was a good idea to get Bob Villan on, that anti-Semite, death to the IDF, the guy from Glastonbury. He seemed very proud of this, Theroux. It's the man everybody wants to talk to. Yes. Theroux, I've always quite liked him as a documentary maker. He strikes me as a very intelligent man, but didn't seem to kind of appreciate this basic fact of life that you shouldn't make money out of anti-Semitism, which is exactly what he sought to do. What's going on? Why did he think about that? He's already paying the price. Sponsors of his podcast are dropping out. So we'll talk about that next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk about Louis Theroux, maker of good documentaries, I think, on the BBC. Much-loved character. Does a podcast. Very excited to announce that his big celebrity interview upcoming was Bob Vylan. Or one half of that Bob Vylan dreadful outfit that sang their songs or rapped their raps at Glastonbury, featuring their famous death to the IDF chant, which got the BBC into huge trouble. The BBC should have pulled them off air. They were on live, but they didn't. They stayed on. They subsequently had to apologise. We made a terrible mistake. Bob Vylan, of course, is actually a sort of duo. There's two of them. And Bob Vylan actually is a down-home guy from the mean streets of Ipswich, whose real name is Pascal Robinson Foster. Wow, that's really kind of cutting edge, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, he's an anti-Semite, and Louis Theroux thought that it was a great idea to get him onto his podcast. Now, one would accept them from certain ilks, certain sections of society. An interview with this raging Jew hater, Pascal Robinson Foster, might incite some interest. But I would have thought that Louis Theroux might have had a bit more intelligence than to realise this is not acceptable. What you're doing here with this podcast, Louis, is you are making money from anti-Semitism. That is just not acceptable. You cannot do that. And guess what? He's paying the price because British Airways has removed its sponsorship of Louis Theroux's podcast, saying that this is not anything that our sponsorship of the series has now been paused and the advert has been removed. We are grateful that this was brought to our attention, says British Airways. What on earth was this guy thinking? I mean, he's a bright guy, old Theroux, isn't he? Well, you can't do this. Let's talk to the Chief Executive of the Anti-Semitism Policy Trust, Danny Stone. Yeah, Danny, were you as surprised as I was that Louis Theroux thought this was a legitimate interview? Because what that does is it reduces Louis Theroux to the status of a man who is making money, cashing in on anti-Semitism. That can't be allowed, can it?
Well, I was surprised, I was shocked, and I was disappointed, because if you look at Theroux's previous documentaries, he has challenged anti-Semites. He has tried to explain to his audience what hate speech is, and yet in this interview, whether people believe he kind of whitewashed or soft-soaped Vylan, he didn't challenge him on some of the most disgusting hate speech that has been espoused. So in failing to challenge, he provided a platform, amplified some views without that kind of qualification, without that context, and didn't really give the audience a proper chance to make its own mind up.
On the issue of Pascal Robinson Foster himself, crazy name, crazy guy, he got away with it at Glastonbury. Death there to the IDF, that is an incitement to violence, quite clearly. It is anti-Semitic. It's a hate crime, if you ask me. He got away with that. The police sort of said, all right, well, we'll let it go. But here he is talking to Louis Theroux, repeating it, saying, I would say that again. I stand by what I say. How long is this guy going to be allowed to break our hate crime laws, Danny?
Well, if Theroux had done any research on this, and he may claim that he did, but certainly in the month before Glastonbury, Vylan had said death to every single IDF soldier out there. Last month he talked about F the Zionists, get out there and fight them, get out there and meet them in the street, get out there and let them know you don't stand by them. I mean, I'm a Zionist, so is he talking about me? Is that who is going to be?
I am too, by the way. Yeah, I love the way these people think that Zionism, or to call someone a Zionist, is an inherent insult. I'm proud to say I'm a Zionist, and so are you. So this feeds right into their innate prejudices, doesn't it?
I think so. He said, we support the right to armed resistance. Yeah, he was a bit more coy about it on Theroux's podcast. So I think that the failure to challenge is disgraceful. And my challenge to Louis Theroux is, what are you going to do now? Right? So as you say, a villain is going to go on and say what he's going to say. There are the police investigations. He's been dropped by his management. He isn't able to get into America and work, and people will make their own minds up about that. But for Theroux, he could invite me onto his podcast. You found a way to get me onto your program. It's easy enough. So my challenge to him is, what are you going to do? How are you going to educate people? And how are you now, given you didn't provide the challenge, going to ensure that there is a challenge in the episode that comes after?
I would also suggest to Louis Theroux, I see this as a blip in another otherwise impressive career. I think he's made a serious, profound mistake here. I think we need to ask Mr. Theroux exactly how much money, I know you've lost your British Airways sponsorship, but exactly how much money have you made out of this interview with this anti-Semite, this Jew hater? Let's sum up how much money you've made. Let's cost it out, and then perhaps you could give it to your organisation or the campaign against anti-Semitism or something like that, so he could make amends. What would you think about that?
I mean, look, we're always happy to take donations if that's what he wants to do. Of course, there'll be less money because, as you have pointed out, the British Airways has paused its sponsorship of his podcast. And I think that's right. I think there do need to be consequences for these kind of things. But I would point out, you said that this is a blip in a career. Yes, I agree to an extent. But Theroux posted on X an article from the London Review of Books, which I believe was an anti-Semitic article. And he hasn't deleted that, and I challenged him directly on that. Yeah. And so I do have concerns about some of his approach. And again, I hope he will reflect on that in his podcast going forward.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't seen that. I'll have a look at that. But what I guess now, in the light of events, slightly worries me about Mr. Theroux is he's a creature of the BBC. And the BBC, I think we can fairly say, to a large extent, is an anti-Semitic organisation. Its coverage of Gaza has been Jew-hating. It's been anti-Israel, anti-Jew. There's no doubt about that. What did you make, Danny, of the BBC's conclusion after investigation into Bob Villan at Glastonbury? It said the corporation's complaints department looking into this, death to the IDF and all this. It said that taken in the round, this can be fairly characterised as anti-Semitic. Taken in the round, this can be fairly characterised as anti-Semitic. How about this was anti-Semitic? Why don't they just say that?
Well, look, my issue with the BBC was that it took so long to get to that point. You know, there was a kind of holding statement, and then eventually, I think 48 hours later or so, there was the apology, and it took so long to get there. Now, for full transparency, our organisation is engaging with the BBC on its kind of understanding of anti-Semitism and what have you, so people should know that. I was pleased that they did come out and say what they said in the end. For me, when these things happen, it's about the protocol, right? So it's less about the content, more about the systems that are then in place, because I don't want this to happen again. I don't want further kind of hate speech to be, as I see it, to be broadcast, right? So what are they doing to stop that? And we are engaging with them on some of the measures to try and prevent that happening. So hopefully the situation will be improved. But I don't believe that the villain should be on the BBC, on Theroux's podcast. I think people should be shunning, as I've given you some of the language that they use. People should be shunning this group, is my take.
Absolutely. And maybe shun Louis Theroux if he does anything more like this. And good luck with teaching the BBC how to be not anti-Semitic. Good luck with teaching them how to divest its Jew hatred, because I hope you succeed, Danny. But boy, oh boy, have you got an an uphill task. You really have. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much, Danny Stone, Chief Executive of the Anti-Semitism Policies Trust. Next up, Martin Liston from The Sun. We're going to talk about the sport and what do we call it? 90 minutes in 90 seconds. I'll get it right in the end. I'm a new boy. That next. Stay tuned.
Is clearly in denial about what's actually going on in the city and under his watch to innocent children.
He's mocking. That's what he's doing. He's mocking. This is vile criminality, and kids are at mortal risk here. He's not addressing it. People should be jumping in and saying this stops now. Under my watch, this does not go on. And all he's doing is a seminar in semantics, and he's mocking a good woman who's addressing the problem.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Right, it's time for, I've got to get this right, 90 minutes in 90 seconds. In fact,
90 minutes in 90 seconds.
From The Sun.
Yeah, I knew I was going to say 90 minutes in 90 seconds. 90 seconds in 90 minutes, but I seem to get it right. But I'll get it wrong tomorrow, I promise you. Here's a man who never gets it wrong. Martin Lipton, Chief Sports Reporter at The Sun. Hi, Martin.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
First of all, great story on the back of The Sun today, under your excellent byline, of course. Wayne Rooney blaming Liverpool's alarming slump on their lack of leaders, talking about the body language of senior figures like Mo Salah, who was terrible the other day, wasn't he? And also Virgil van Dijk, the captain. What is going on there? 4 defeats in a row from a team who have now slumped to 7th. Nobody saw this coming, as Wayne Rooney says. He says lack of leaders. What's happening there, Martin?
I mean, Wayne Rooney's become a very reliable source of back-page stories, it has to be said, over his career and even in retirement. But this is really interesting that he's nailed the issues at Liverpool in that they have looked a pale imitation, a shadow of the team that won the league, despite having spent the best part of 450 million on the summer to strengthen. And therein lies the problem, I think, that there's a whole new team. This is Arne Slot's team rather than continuity Klopp, as it was last year when they won the title. And people seem to be looking at each other, looking for solutions without willing to find the solutions themselves. The captain has been digging out Van Dijk, that is digging out Kirkes, the new left back in matches. Salah looks a lost soul. Nothing like the player he was last year when he was truly outstanding, leading in both the goals and the assist charts in the Premier League. The manager keeps on changing and chopping his team, and they played with 4 different right backs in the last 4 games at various stages. Only 2 players have been on the pitch at the final whistle in all 4 of those games, which is Van Dijk and Szoboszlai. And something is seriously awry there. Something is wrong. And Rooney's case is that it's because there is not a strength of character, a leadership, a sense of purpose within the squad.
It's extraordinary, and I think it must set Arsenal on their way to winning the title. I can't see Liverpool challenging them. Man City also blinking. Just before you go, Martin, I'm very intrigued by the Celtic story. Brendan Rodgers resigning after losing to Hearts, 8 points adrift from the top of the table. We're not used to seeing Celtic in that position. But then the club coming back saying that he created a toxic culture there. What's going on there?
It's a brutal fallout between Dermot Desmond, who's the sort of silent owner of Celtic, and Brendan Rodgers. They were thick as thieves for a long time. Now they've fallen out spectacularly. A statement of this magnitude and severity is unusual in football. It shows you how poor the relationship has become over the last few months, and it's a real indication of the issues at Celtic. Rodgers was digging out the lack of signings, questioning the club's priorities. He's now been made to walk the plank, and back comes another former Celtic manager, because that seems to be what they do.
All right, Martin, extraordinary goings on. Martin Lipton there. Back in a moment after the news. Stay where you are.
Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the Channel crossing as the dangerous bit. But actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert Many tens of kilometres have to be covered on foot by these migrants, and as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan in for Mike Graham, and in about 20 minutes or so we'll be talking to the great Kinsey Schofield. She's over in London at the moment, our royal expert from Los Angeles, and there's so much to talk about. Day in, day out, there's a new royal story. We're going to talk about Prince Andrew moving in potentially to Frogmore Cottage, requiring more expenditure. He wants it done up again, even though £2.4 million was spent on a refurbishment by Harry and Meghan when they lived there. Also, where's Fergie going to go? But also an indication of the damage that Prince Andrew is doing to the royal family. Insofar as King Charles attended an event yesterday, he was heckled by the crowd saying, "Do you know about Jeffrey Epstein and your brother? Did you know about it?" You know, this is bad, folks. This is bad. And one of the reasons it's getting worse is the king is not being tough enough. He needs to be tougher on his brother. He needs to be tougher on Fergie. He needs to get real. He needs to exercise the scum that is Fergie and Andy, because the public, as long as Andy and Fergie are attached to the royal family and being given generous gifts and homes by the king, the people won't like it. So get real, you Madge, otherwise there's going to be trouble. We'll play you that video later, talk to Kinsey in a minute. But first, let's do politics again. Let's go straight over to College Green on this very cold but rather pleasant day. We're waiting for us is the Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Alex Burkhart. Morning, Alex.
Morning, Kevin.
Thank you for joining us. Now, you want to talk about, and I think we all want to talk about, the China spy case. There is the Opposition Day debate, I believe, today. I was speaking to what I find disconcerting about this saga. Obviously, there's been some terrible mistakes made. Clearly, the government was involved in essentially collapsing this trial against 2 potential alleged Chinese spies.
Yep.
Who, of course, deny their offences, because we're told that the government's chief security advisor, Jonathan Powell, said we cannot characterise China as an enemy of this state in that trial. The government kind of denied this. Now, I spoke yesterday, Alex, to Dan Hodges, the Mail on Sunday columnist, and I was struck by something he wrote last week. Right there, it was actually in the Daily Mail. He said, the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, lied to the House of Commons today. So what Dan and a number of other observers, a number of other Westminster insiders are saying, that this complete mess, the government's technique to try and get out of it, is just to lie to us. Very worrying.
Very worrying. And you're right, and Dan Hodges has followed this story very, very closely. I mean, look, behind all of this, Kevin, is the fact that this is one of the worst cases of alleged spying in recent decades. You know, it's said that spies working for China were going through material that were coming out of MPs' offices. This is, it goes to the heart of our democracy. It goes to the very foundations of what of how Parliament works. And you'd think in those circumstances that the government would strain every sinew to make sure that the trial went ahead. And instead, it was clear yesterday, select committee hearing where key witnesses from the government were pulled up and the prosecutor themselves was pulled up, that they didn't do that. Not only have they not done that, the government's story has changed several times since we've been asking them questions over the past few weeks, and we're saying today, enough of the nonsense. Let's have full transparency, publish what happened in those key meetings in September when all of the heads of the different departments got together. Show us exactly why you chose not to comply with the requests of the CPS so that we can understand why you didn't want this case to go ahead.
Yeah, you got the government saying, well, this was nothing to do with us, this was the Crown Prosecution Service's decision, and the Crown CPS saying, no, you basically took away the foundation stone of the prosecution, which was these two guys were allegedly working for an enemy of this state. If you say we can't call China an enemy, then the case collapses. Government saying nothing to do with us. CPS saying yes, it's everything to do with you. And then we have this is where Dan Hodges and other people say the Prime Minister just turned around to the Commons and lied. It was when your boss Kemi Badenoch, in a very good performance at PMQ, said to the Prime Minister, are you telling me, we're talking about Matthew Collins here, the Deputy National Security Advisor, who is alleged to have taken this decision to tell the CPS, sorry, we can't characterise China as an enemy. Kemi said to across the dispatch box to the Prime Minister, are you telling me that a very important point of national policy, international policy, our approach as a nation to China and its spying, that everything, this very important issue, was entirely decided by one man, a reasonably junior civil servant, the Deputy National Security Advisor, Matthew Collins. Do you remember Keir Starmer's answer? To much hilarity, he went, yes. I mean, is he expecting us to believe that?
It's unacceptable. I mean, look, we have a saying in Westminster, we all have heard many times, Kevin, which is that advisors advise, ministers decide. It's not for advisors to make government policy. It's not for advisors to decide what the government is going to do on any day. The advisors suggest different ways of working through, but ultimately responsibility lies with ministers, and ultimate responsibility lies with the Prime Minister. And I think it's quite shocking that the Prime Minister has persistently refused to take responsibility for what's going on here. He knew, we now know, he knew days in advance, he personally knew that days in advance that the case was likely to collapse, and he did nothing. We know that the Home Secretary knew that the case was going to collapse, and her aides have been briefing that she did try to do something. Why did nobody grip this? Why have we ended up in a situation where one of the worst cases of spying against British members of Parliament in recent decades has collapsed? This is either terrible incompetence or it's something much more sinister. Anyway, today, Kevin, we're going to try and get to the bottom of it. We're going to force MPs to vote on the release of key papers, including minutes of key meetings. And, again, we'll see whether the Labour Party want to be honest with people, whether they want to come clean, or whether they want to carry on with a terrible cover-up.
You see, again, everything you're saying there, Alex, it points to the fact that this Prime Minister, and I guess his cabinet as well, their technique of dealing with this growing scandal is to lie to us. They're just lying. Does it worry you as a minister, shadow Secretary of State? Does it worry you that we have a government? I've never known. I mean, I've been around a few years, way too many years, to be honest with you. But
not enough, Kevin. Not enough.
But I've seen a lot of governments. I've never seen a government like this that just use lying as a technique of dealing with all sorts of issues. Does it worry you? Did you agree with what I'm saying, that this is a government that just, its default setting seems to be to lie to the people? That's not good enough.
I think that this government's default setting is dishonesty, and I think that's because they don't know how to handle power. They got in the election last year, and they immediately hit the skids. We had the Lord Ali scandal straight off, and then we had this disastrous budget which has damaged the economy, something dreadful, and then we've gone on to have Angela Rayner, Peter Mandelson, Morgan McSweeney, and the list goes on and on and on. And now we're in the middle of something really serious, which is national security and the security of democratically elected members of parliament. And I just don't think they have the backbone to deal with it. I don't think they have the backbone to make the right decisions or take responsibility for them. And I do think that's enormously serious.
Well, good luck at the debate later today, Alex. Can I just ask you a quick sort of news?
Thanks, Kevin.
Can I ask you a quick news question before you go?
Okay.
A lot of talk about this prisoner, Britain's best-known asylum seeker, sex offender Harish Kabatu, being farcically released from jail on Friday.
Yep.
Robert Jenrick yesterday skewering a rather furious David Lammy, who seems to think that the people to blame for the release of this prisoner were the last Tory government. Not quite sure where he gets that from. But this government said over the weekend, when we get this guy, he'll be deported on Tuesday, as in today. That got watered down. He'll be deported within a week. And now he will be deported as soon as possible. How much faith do you have in this government to deport this guy at all?
I think you know the answer to that one already, Kevin. I don't have faith in this government to tie its own shoelaces. I know this is the truth is that it's one scandal that this guy gets the country illegally in the first place. It's another scandal, absolute scandal, that he assaults people, women and girls in Epping, and then there's the final sort of insult to the British people is that he's accidentally released and has to be rearrested. So look, I think the chances of them successfully deporting this bloke anytime soon are very, very small indeed. And that's going to expose just how incapable they are of handling government.
Alex, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. Alex Burghardt there, Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. Let's go straight over to the political editor of The Independent, David Maddox. Hi, David.
Morning, how are you?
I'm very, very well. I was just talking to Alex Burghardt there about the debate today about the China spy trial and this extraordinary syndrome where the government seems to be continuing to say, well, it's nothing really to do with us. It's this guy, Matthew Collins, who was Jonathan Powell's Deputy National Security Advisor. He's the one that decided the entire nation's policy on whether or not China was an enemy of the state. He's the one who's entirely responsible for it, and also the decision, it's the Crown Prosecution Service who collapsed this trial, not us. This is all claptrap, utter rubbish, isn't it? What do you think about Starmer's technique of dealing with this escalating crisis, which is just to lie about it and say nothing to do with us, Gov, nothing to see here? Nonsense, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's as you were saying, their default position is always to blame somebody else for problems under their watch. I mean, they're blaming the previous government. The previous government takes a lot of responsibility for a lot of things, frankly, but they automatically blame the previous government for literally everything. The problem here is that this official they want to blame, and Alex is absolutely right. Officials advise, ministers decide. That's the constitution. Actually changed his evidence after Labour came to power, and we've seen this in the things they published. He said they were a threat when the Conservatives were in power, and then suddenly he didn't. Now, there's all sorts of speculation as to why he may have done that. But this government is overtly flirting with China for good or ill.
Indeed. Moving on to our old favourite, the migrant crisis, the Prime Minister announcing yesterday, actually, it's in the papers today, that announcing, to be honest with you, David, yet again, that asylum seekers will be moved or no longer put into hotels, but instead into disused military barracks, disused holiday camps and the like. They named a disused barracks in Scotland and another one in Sussex. Well, that won't make much difference. We know they're still commandeering hotels to put these people into. So, you know, they're not really telling the truth about this. And they seem to announce this every single week. We're going to cease the use of asylum seeker hotels, and yet they don't. You know, we also learn that they're spending more and more money on asylum seeker hotels. This migrant crisis, if you add the absurd one-in, one-out scheme into the mix, this migrant crisis is drowning Keir Starmer, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the crisis that kills governments. I'm afraid it killed the last government, and it's going to kill this government as well. You know, let's not pretend here all those kind of switches in the red wall to reform and things, all those votes which collapsed in places like Caerphilly. A lot of it's based on people's perception of what's going on with the migrant crisis, their anger about it, and you know. The problem is that they're constantly doing sticking plaster type things to try and show that they're trying to do something without actually achieving very much. That's the issue here. And it's always worth looking at the small print of their announcements, because when they first announced that they were ending the use of migrant hotels, I think it was by the end of this parliament. So, you know, several years ahead.
Yeah.
Just to give themselves a bit of time. I mean, frankly, I think there's a big question mark that they will even achieve that. I mean, you know, I mean, it's not as bold as stop the boats, but it's certainly something that could hang them.
Yeah, stop the boats, smash the gangs, and so on and so forth. And I think that the government, they've become so obsessed by criticism of the use of asylum seeker hotels, 4-star hotels, that we think will be costing us about £15 billion over the years to come. So they keep saying, oh, well, we're going to stop using hotels, as if the only thing we're worried about, the people of Britain, the long-suffering people of Britain, is where we put these people. No, what we're worried about is how we're going to stop them coming. They seem to have lost all focus on the centre of the issue, which is to try to solve the crisis, try to stop them coming. And the one-in, one-out scheme is, frankly, you know, hilariously bizarre. It's just a sick joke.
Well, I mean, it doesn't seem to have stopped the boats coming.
It certainly doesn't.
If the idea was that it was going to put off the gangs and put off people wanting to pay stupid sums of money to go on these small boats, it clearly hasn't. I mean, as we saw last week, somebody's paid twice to have another go. And it's... I mean, as I say, it's not just this government, actually. The only government in the Western world that's actually succeeded in dealing with this crisis appears to be the one over in the United States. This is dragging governments down left, right and centre. I mean, look what's happening in France. Look what's already happened in the Netherlands and in Sweden and places like that. It's, you know, voters are fed up with it, clearly, and, you know, for good reason. And there doesn't seem to be any real solution apart from empty slogans.
I want to ask you about the grooming gang scandal in just a second, because that is another massive problem for this government that is growing by the day. Do you have any idea what Keir Starmer... He was talking about asylum seeker hotels yesterday. In Turkey. Do you know why he was in Turkey?
I think he was there on a NATO.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, David. I'm just saying it's this never hear Keir thing. I mean, this guy is always on an aeroplane, isn't it?
Well, about there's a point here that his you know, you can debate whether success or not, but where he has looked good and where he is more appreciated is on the international stage. He's dealt with Donald Trump well. You know, a lot of the kind of European leaders like him. He gets a good hearing of it, and some of his better hits have been on the international stage. He hasn't got many, or if any, on the domestic stage. So he's already in that kind of what would normally be a late prime ministerial period of trying to up his ratings by going abroad. And that's where we are. Normally, you've got to be in power for about 7 or 8 years before you have to hit that point. He had to do it after about 6 months.
I would say, David, that on the world stage, he wasn't exactly triumphant, was he? Was it 2 weeks ago in Egypt at Sharm el Sheikh where he was utterly humiliated? I think the only thing you can say about him on the world stage is he's slightly less catastrophic than he is on the domestic stage.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was as humiliating as some. I mean, at least Trump kind of called him out. I mean, Trump has actually been amazingly one of his best friends in terms of trying to build him up. And be good to him. I mean, it's you know, whenever Keir's in trouble, Trump will step in and say, "No, this is a great guy. Love working with him. Love taking money from his country." You know.
Yeah. Trump kind of tends to say that about anyone he's talking about. Yeah, great guy, really good guy, really.
He doesn't get the Carney treatment though, does he?
No, I guess not. I guess you got a point there. Can I just ask you though, David, about the grooming gang, the rape gang scandal, which again I think is becoming. It's right up there with the migrant crisis when it comes to this government. It is becoming an all-consuming problem for them insofar as, you know, they've dragged their heels. They didn't want to have a national inquiry, public inquiry, when we clearly needed one. This is the biggest sex scandal in British history. The Louise Casey report last May was it, forced the government, forced Starmer into conceding, all right, then we'll have a public inquiry, a national public inquiry. That was in early June. Here we are 5-6 months on, still haven't even found anyone to chair the inquiry. Grooming gang victim girls, 4-5 of them was it last week, all quitting the inquiry, all quitting the victims panel, saying this is a cover-up, we are being treated with contempt, we are being ignored. They all hate the safeguarding minister Jess Phillips, who they say is about as much use to them as the chocolate fire guard. They want her fired. And now we're being told, oh, the inquiry can't happen until at least next year. And the nation are furious. Nigel Farage, I hesitate to say cashing in on it, but he's certainly making political capital of the fact that Labour is making a massive mess out of getting this inquiry, this public inquiry that the public demand, in getting it going, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think Reform much to talk about this because they promised to do their own version of an inquiry and never bothered. So, you know, Nigel was a bit late on the show with this one, but compared to others. But no, I mean, frankly, look at this government. It is an appalling mess, yet another appalling mess. I'm actually surprised Jess Phillips hasn't been sacked yet, not because of whether she's a good minister or not. I think she's actually a much more decent person than people are willing to say, but because the normal reaction of Keir Starmer to a real terrible problem is to sack somebody, and she's the obvious person to do it. She was actually the only Home Office minister to survive the reshuffle, interestingly enough.
Well, I reckon, David, what will happen to her pretty soon, I think she'll be shuffled into another job. Rather than sort of humiliatingly sacked. But I think she's become untenable as a safeguard.
I mean, it can't continue with her in post because the victims have clearly lost confidence in her. So if they either want this inquiry or not, but you know, there's political reasons, aren't there, that they resisted an inquiry. They've got all these seats where they almost lost to these kind of Gaza independent type votes, Muslim votes. They've got all, you know, it's Labour councils, I'm afraid, which were almost universally responsible for failing the victims and failing to tackle the perpetrators. So, you know, it smelt bad from the start. And now, I mean, the one solution, the one thing he can do is to just bend to demands and actually appoint a judge to lead this inquiry, which he seems to want to resist, but just have a judge-led inquiry. It seems to be the only solution here.
Yeah, I agree. I think what he wants someone who's going to be favourable to Labour and not point the finger at the majority of the perpetrators, the majority of the rape gang members who were Muslim men of Pakistani heritage. Starmer doesn't like the idea of that, but he's going to have to get used to it, I think. David, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. David Maddox, their political editor of The Independent. Next up, the Royals with the one and only Kinsey Schofield, who once again is going to excite me with her presence here in the studio. I'm usually talk to her over there on the West Coast. She's in London at the moment, so she'll be in just a second. Kinsey next. You better stay tuned for that.
Violence went up in our prisons. Self-harm went up in our prisons. Drug abuse went up in our prisons. And prison officer numbers were cut under his watch. William Fernandez was released in error in March 2021. He was a sexual predator. He raped a 16-year-old and sexually assaulted another young woman after he was let out by prison in 2021. Was there an independent investigation? No.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Only half an hour of Morning Glory to go. 10 a.m. The great Julia Hartley-Brewer takes over the helm of the Good Ship Talk, which will take you through to 1 p.m. Then it's Ian Collins. And then it's Jeremy Carr, and then it's me. Oh, no, it's not me, it's Samara Gill.
Is JK back?
Huh?
Is JK back?
Oh, okay. No, it's not.
Peter.
It's Peter Cardwell. Sorry, I did Peter wrong there. It's Peter Cardwell, not JK. But then it's not me. It's Marika. Everybody's standing in for everyone else today. Kinsey Schofield, as you may have just heard, is in the studio. Hi, Kins.
Hi, good to see you.
Good to see you. You came over here for a week. You were expecting to have a nice laid-back time in London, but the royal stories have engulfed you because there's so much going on. I want to talk about Andrew, want to talk about Fergie, their domestic arrangements. But I think the important story to talk about first is King Charles. I know you and you feel, you've got a lot of sympathy for the king, and he's battling cancer and all that. But there's a problem going on here. And the problem for the royal family here is Prince Andrew, and by extension Fergie as well. The public are disgusted by this couple. They're disgusted by Prince Andrew, and they don't feel the king is doing enough to get rid of him, basically get him out of our lives, put him out of our misery. They think he's being too kind to him. They don't really understand why he's trying to get him another home, Frogmore Cottage. They think he should just kick him out. I get the fact you can't make the king's brother homeless. I'm not sure why the king is trying to find a home for Fergie as well. Yeah. I think she should be told...
Maybe it's more about the corgis.
Well, it could be. Yeah, there is that. He wants a nice home for the Queen's corgis. Fergie, one of the only nice things she's ever done is looking after the late great Queen's beloved corgis. So good for Fergie on that front only. But anyway, my point about the Andrew problem is it is causing big problems for the royal family, and unless the king does something to sort it out, and to stop us, the people, associating the royal family with Randy Andy, there's going to be more and more problems. This is what happened to the king yesterday when he went on a visit.
How long have you known about Andrew and Epstein? Have you asked the police to cover up for Andrew? Have you asked the police to cover up for Andrew's Charles? What do you think? Should the MPs be allowed to debate the royals in the House of Commons?
I love the way that every time the royals get criticised like that, they act like they can't hear the king going like this. But that was a guy from Republic, so he's an anti-monarchist. So obviously, but he's cashing in. The people who want the royal family gone are cashing in on what's going on. So the king is going to find he gets more and more of that unless he does something about this. So today, Kinsey, we're learning, and this is the sort of thing that is infuriating, the Cosmore Cottage. Why am I doing that? It's on the screen anyway. Cosmore Cottage, front page of the Sun, that it looks as if Andrew may have finally agreed to move out of the Royal Lodge, where he's lived rent-free for 22 years, and into this smaller place, Frogmore Cottage, which Harry and Meghan spent £2.4 million doing up in 2019. He wants it done up again. He wants more refurbishments. Okay, as I say, all right. It's the king's brother, he can't be homeless. But also the king is trying to find, or may put Fergie into Adelaide Cottage, which currently William and Catherine live in. And the people are going, why are you doing this for Fergie? They go, oh, well, she might write a tell-all book. We don't care.
I know, but I was thinking about this. Fergie could absolutely destroy the legacy of Princess Diana, which would infuriate Prince, inevitable King William. You know that there are secrets buried there. When it comes to Fergie and Diana were trouble together. They, and they shared secrets. There was the...
They fell out in the end, but they were very close.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why they fell out, one of the several times they fell out, is because they were planning on taking down the monarchy together. They were going to leave their husbands at the exact same time in an effort to humiliate them. They wanted to humiliate the monarchy, and Diana was a coward and backed. I love Diana, but she backed out, and so it's then Fergie that took the brunt. I do believe there's some resentment there, and that if Fergie really wanted to, she could absolutely humiliate Diana with some of those secrets that she has kept over the years. And I think ultimately that would really anger Prince William.
And I think there's there's a kind of deception that's gone on. You remember the Andy and Fergie called the happiest divorced couple in the world. Yeah. She has clung on. She's lived in the Royal Lodge along with him. But we're finding out now that this alleged great happy relationship, it isn't really. And a story in the papers today, the Mail running a story saying that Fergie's got nowhere to live and no friends to help her anymore. And so she's facing the grim prospect of being kicked out of Royal Lodge. She's got nowhere to go. But then we understand that the King, who, to be fair, has got some sympathy for her because she's battled breast cancer. And he's actually apparently very fond of her daughters, Eugenia and Beatrice. So I suppose he's trying to be nice to her there.
Don't you think?
But I think he's got to start thinking about what the people think about all this.
But don't the people want them out of Windsor? I mean, Windsor is going to be William's home.
Yeah, but that doesn't get them out of Windsor.
But I feel like if they're
all in Windsor Great Park.
But they shouldn't. Andrew and Fergie shouldn't be, because they'll continue to be a distraction.
Exactly.
There. Go away. Go far, far away to where we don't see you. We don't hear from you.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
That's why I think the King is making a mistake here. You know, if you must put Andrew somewhere on Windsor Great Park, but I agree with you, a long way away would be better, but not Fergie.
Yeah.
You know, tell Fergie, I don't care, you know, never mind the royal family, oh, they might write a book about us, that wouldn't be, we don't care. We want you to act tough. We want you to tell Fergie, right, your years, your decades, your life of venal scrounging is over. We're not giving you any more stuff. Go and get a job. Go and find somewhere to live.
Well, I can guarantee you that Prince William, who has spent the last few years dedicating himself to the homeless crisis, is not worried about Fergie not having anywhere to go, because he's seen real desperation. He's seen real poverty. And Fergie put some handbags up for sale. You know, there are plenty of ways that Fergie could find a path for herself. I'm sure her daughters are not going to let her go homeless, but to hand her a home for deception, I mean, she lied too, calling Jeffrey Epstein her supreme friend. Yeah. We've learned over the last few weeks that Fergie and her daughters went to celebrate with Jeffrey Epstein once he was released from jail, allegedly, according to Andrew Loney. So I think that she is just as guilty as Prince Andrew is, if we're just judging the two of them on the fact that they've been dishonest to the public that has been, you know, helped them live this really amazing lifestyle over the last 2 decades.
And as they say, if you can judge a man by, or a woman if you like as well, by the company they keep, by the friends they have, we learned today, the BBC running a story that Andy, Prince Andrew, at Royal Lodge regularly had as guests Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, who of course is doing 20 years for finding and providing the girls for Epstein to abuse, and of course lastly the disgraced, jailed sex predator film producer Harvey Weinstein. All regular guests. Yeah, exactly.
Welcome to hell.
That's what I'm saying about Prince Andrew. The King needs to do something that, in effect.
Wait, can I distract you something?
Yeah. I was just saying something really eloquent there. But
I know. Did you see in Virginia's book that she says that Ghislaine Maxwell hooked up with George Clooney? And then you're thinking to yourself, Harry and Meghan didn't invite cousins to their wedding so George Clooney, who hooked up with Ghislaine Maxwell, could be there?
Is that, I mean, Virginia Giuffre's book, Nobody's Girl, is a very harrowing read. And of course, apart from the George Clooney story, it chronicles her story of how Prince Andrew sexually abused her on 3 different continents when she was like 17 years old. He denies that. But then again, he's a liar. So if you believe him, as I said earlier, I got some swampland to sell you in Florida. But what I was about to say was that, before I was so rudely interrupted, I'm only kidding, was that the King needs to in effect, announce to the people of this country,
I choose you,
that I am going to do something about this dreadful brother.
I hear you. I choose you.
He doesn't like Andrew anyway. He never has. And rather than give him this fabulous, well, they call it a cottage, it's a mansion in Windsor Great Park, only about 500 yards from where he's living now. Just say, all right, well, I've got you a 2 up, 2 down in Sunderland or something like that. He needs to do something. He also needs to accept that the people of this country are not buying his solution to the titles problem. Don't worry, my brother won't use these titles anymore. We're saying, no, we do worry. We want them stripped from them, taken away by an Act of Parliament. So we want an Act of Parliament, and we don't want you putting him in Windsor Great Park. We want you putting him somewhere else. King needs to get tough, because this is about the survival of the royal family.
I completely agree that Prince Andrew jeopardizes the future of the monarchy, and I really see that Prince William is in a difficult position too, because he loves his cousins. But the more we see of them, the more that these two, Fergie and Andrew, are accessible to us, the more questions come up. They're talking about a forensic search of his finances. Well, if you believe Andrew Loney, his daughters have benefited from some of those financial relationships, and it could jeopardize their reputation as well. Out of sight, out of mind, it would benefit everyone for these two to disappear and go far, far away. Go find an island, not Epstein's Island, but go find a nice island, or just disappear and live a comfortable life. A life that you're capable of living without the help of your brother.
Absolutely right, and you're right that Eugenie and Beatrice are being what they call their finances are being ethics checked. Checks for whether or not they're ethical, because of course so much of the income of their parents, Fergie and Andy, was not ethical. It was disastrous, like nefarious billionaires, rich foreign people.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, like Jeffrey Epstein. So now Eugenie and Beatrice are in the frame as well. So it's all a very, very murky picture. Well, Kinsey, thanks for coming in. I better let you get on with your very, very busy day. The brilliant Kinsey Schofield there over in London at the moment. Good to see you, as always. When we come back, we're going to talk about the COVID inquiry. I talked about it with Peter Blexley very early on in the show. It's cost us like 192 million pounds so far. It's coming in at around about £170,000 a day. It is a vile and disgusting waste of money. We'll talk about that next. Thank you to Kinsey. Stick around.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're going to talk about the COVID inquiry now, and in the studio is the head of campaigns from the Taxpayers Alliance, Elliot Keck. Welcome, Elliot.
Morning, Kevin.
Well, let's talk about this. The costs of this ludicrous, pointless inquiry.
Yeah.
So far, 3 years of it, is £192 million. It's working out at the moment at £160,000 every single day. Let me tell you, I think it was about a year ago, it was working out at more than that. It was coming in at about £300,000 a day. The costs are grotesque. They're obscene. Of this money, £110 million has been spent on lawyers. 26.3 million spent on something called operational costs. The inquiry chairperson, I should say. Daily Mail being very unpolitically correct there. Chairperson Baroness Heather Hallett has been paid so far £794,000, and she's received £41,000 in expenses. What's that all about? Is that lunch or something, for God's sake? And so on and so forth. The big problem here, Elliot, if we were coming towards some kind of solution, some kind of conclusion that would be of value to the nation, I suppose begrudgingly we would accept this obscene expenditure. But we're not, because the main thing about this inquiry, which renders it utterly pointless, an utter waste of time, is it refuses and will not examine the big question, the only question that matters, and that is, should we have locked down at all? All this inquiry is examining is, did we lock down early enough? Did we lock down hard enough? Next time, should we lock down for longer?
Yeah.
No, the lockdowns didn't work. But they're not talking about this, so the whole thing is pointless. It's a disgusting expense to us, isn't it?
Yeah, we warned in May 2024 that this was going to end up being the most expensive inquiry on record. So we've been warning about this for a long time, and they called it flawed analysis. They essentially said it was back of the fag packet maths. They completely dismissed it, and lo and behold, it turns out the TPA were right, as we, I think, normally are. And the COVID inquiry is a microcosm of everything that is wrong with the British state. They think they have a blank cheque. They think they're completely unaccountable. They think they have an unlimited remit to look at and do whatever they want. And it's all with our money, hundreds of millions of pounds worth of our money. And as you said, the one key question is, was it worth it? Was it worth destroying lives, destroying businesses, destroying educations? Is it worth, stopping people from being at their loved one's side when they were dying? Is it worth the enormous economic and societal damage to save the number of lives it did? That's the only question that it should be looking at.
And they're not looking at it. And if you go to that inquiry, it's in this vast room. There's usually, I don't know the exact numbers, there's probably 120 people in there at any given time. There's not any lawyers.
Yeah.
They've got teams of assistant lawyers behind them. They've obviously got stenographers taking it all down. They've got court clerks. Look at them. Rows and rows and rows of them. God knows what they're all doing, but they are all costing us £160,000 a day. That's an obscenity, isn't it?
The self-importance and the ego of this inquiry is absolutely extraordinary. And really, this should have been wrapped up very quickly after the pandemic. In order to learn the lessons, you want to learn the lessons at the maximum point of interest, the maximum point of focus, when it's fresh in the mind. It sort of reminds me of the Chilcot inquiry, right, which only reported a few years ago, despite, decades on from after the Iraq War started. And by the time it reported, nobody cared. It was ancient history.
Yeah, that's
and
exactly right.
COVID, lockdown is now 6 years ago, coming up to 6 years ago in March. Right, that's when lockdown started. The COVID inquiry is not expected to report back until probably towards the end of next year, which means we've got months more of this spending, which means that the total cost is going to be astronomical. It's going to be much more than this figure. We've put the estimate previously at around £225 million, but I think it's going to end up being more. It's a complete sham.
Look, Elliot, good to have you in the studio. And let me, far be it from me to tell you how to do your job, but I suggest a freedom of information request into exactly what Baroness Heather Hallett is spending £41,000 on expenses for. I mean, she's on a, I suppose you have to accept, what's she on, about 250 grand a year, so I suppose you can accept that. £41,000 in expenses.
Yeah, it's extraordinary.
Find that out, Elliot.
Yeah,
and then you can come back and tell us all about it.
Digging.
Elliot Keck, Head of Campaigns at Taxpayers Alliance, thank you so much. Let me know what you think. What, 192 million pounds, 160 grand a day. Unbelievable. We'll be back in a minute. We're going to play you some of the highlights for the show, from this show. That'll take about 25 seconds. Seriously, back in a moment. Stay.
This Justice Secretary could not deport the only small boat migrant who who tried to be deported. Yes. Having been mistakenly released, Hadush Kabatu came back to prison asking to be deported, not once, not twice, but 5 times. But he was turned away. Calamity Lammy strikes again.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, we've nearly finished 4 hours from 6 a.m. This getting up in the morning, it's fantastic. It's great. Right. No, it's good getting up at 3:30 in the morning. It gives you a different perspective, you know. Certainly it gives me a different perspective. 3:30 in the morning is normally around about the time I'm beginning to think about preparing to go to bed. Just one more bottle of wine and then I'm there, you know. Anyway, earlier I spoke to a former prison officer. He's the host of the Real Porridge podcast, about who was to blame. His name's Sam Samsworth. It's about who was to blame for the release of the migrant sex attacker, Habish Kabati. He took it well, but I think have a look at this and see was I right to get a bit heated? Have a look.
Do you recognise that guy?
What?
Would you recognise him?
What, in his prison tracksuit, carrying a plastic bag full of his possessions?
I absolutely would recognise him.
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
Yeah.
It does go way higher up. It's not the prison service. It might find it controversial, this, but they're strained that much now. Prison reception is an incredibly busy place to work.
Yeah? Well, okay, hang on a second. Look, I get that, and I do understand there are staff shortages, and as I say, I think the buck needs to stop at the top. I think that prison governor, Mark Howard, needs the finger pointing at him. I think the prison minister, James Timpson, needs to answer a few questions. And I think David Lammy, the Justice Secretary, needs to be in the frame as well. But the people who actually let him go, it's their fault. They've got to be in the frame as well, right?
They can only work with what's presented in front of them.
No. They
Honestly,
let this.
no, listen.
You said everybody could recognise him. They let him out.
I know they did.
So they made a mistake, didn't they, Sam?
No, they followed the paperwork.
They didn't make a mistake.
No.
They didn't make a mistake letting Hadush Kabatu out. I would suggest, Sam, with all due respect, they did make a mistake.
OK, listen, just hear me out a minute. If that paperwork said he was due release, they're going to release him. That's it. So, for me...
Well, we don't know that the paperwork said that, do we?
Well, we don't without seeing it. I mean, obviously... They're looking at the release procedures.
Who did the paperwork? Who would have done the paperwork?
There'll be a big chain. There should be
what do you mean, big
to hold
chain?
Someone in prison.
Who made that decision? Who would have signed off his release? He was just looking at our friend Kabatu there. He's on his way to the children's section of the Dalston Library there, which in itself is rather sinister. In the studio, it's the brilliant Julia Hartley-Brewer. How are you?
Good morning, my lovely. Yeah, that is, I mean, particularly sinister. I did think, what are you doing in a library?
Yeah, but I'll tell you why I know this is Emma Wolfe was my guest yesterday morning, and she lives locally, and she took her kids there. She said, that's the children's section. Make of that what
well,
you know,
a man who said he wanted to have babies with a 14-year-old and a schoolgirl in her school uniform, maybe we shouldn't be surprised. I'm saying, I know you've been talking about today, the asylum seekers being housed in military sites, 900 in barracks. Brilliant. What are you going to do with the other 31,100? plus the other 2,000 who are going to arrive each week? I mean, are they insane? Do they think we... Also, they just want them in the barracks, so we don't care. They're not going to be sealed. They're not going to be, like, literally locked away. They're going to be able to just move freely.
You want to know about the three certainties of life? They used to say two certainties, death and taxes. The three certainties in Britain now are death, taxes, and a weekly announcement by Keir Starmer about putting asylum seekers into military barracks.